Hello everyone. Welcome to Frightening Tales. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So, before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's case. Story 1. In early 2025, the UK was rocked by the case of a beast in human form. Media outlets flooded the airwaves with reports of a depraved predator named Zhu Zhenghao, a textbook example of a hypocrite cloaked in righteousness. According to allegations, this Chinese international student is suspected of secretly spiking drinks with sedatives to carry out depraved acts on 60 women over 5 years, most of whom were either completely unconscious or in a semi-conscious state. Even more chilling, he recorded every crime on video as a twisted keepsake. Most terrifying of all is the extreme secrecy of his methods. Many victims may still be unaware they were secretly filmed while incapacitated. Zhu Zhenghao, now 27, hails from a wealthy family in Dunhuan, Guangdong Province. His father worked for a state-owned enterprise while his mother was a teacher. Reports reveal the family owned multiple properties. In 2017, at age 20, Zhu first arrived in Northern Ireland to study mechanical engineering at Queen's University Belfast. 2 years later, in September 2019, he moved to England to pursue a master's degree in mechanical engineering at University College London, UCL. In 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Zhu returned to China. But a year later, he came back to London to begin a PhD program. Backed by substantial financial support from his family, Zhu faced no economic pressures. Beyond covering steep tuition and living expenses, his parents regularly sent him spending money. As a spoiled rich kid, he lived extravagantly, purchasing a luxury Rolex watch, amassing a wardrobe of designer clothes, and obsessing over his appearance. To make himself more attractive to women, Zhu invested in cosmetic procedures, hair transplants, double eyelid surgery, chin fillers, and orthodontic work. He also used an array of high-end skincare products to maintain his looks. After this makeover, Zhu joined a Chinese online dating show and created multiple social media accounts under different names. Crafting an image of a fitness-obsessed PhD student, he frequently posted shirtless selfies to flaunt his physique and brag to friends about his bedroom prowess. Though it's unclear if this was mere boasting. Once he claimed to have conquered 100 women in a year, Zhu was meticulous about his living arrangements. In a rental listing, he explicitly requested a well-soundproofed apartment, citing a desire to host parties. But behind this seemingly innocent request lurked a sinister motive. He initially lived in student housing in Bloomsbury, central London, before moving to a luxury apartment in Elephant and Castle, South London. The apartment on the 39th floor with panoramic city views cost $4,000 per month, approximately $5,900 at the time. In January 2024, police raided the Elephant and Castle apartment, arresting him on the spot. At the scene, authorities found items in his wardrobe, including droppers, glass vials, butylene glycol, Viagra, ecstasy, and other illicit substances. They also seized a special industrial chemical that once ingested metabolizes into GHB. A dangerous banned substance often called the date rape drug, capable of rendering victims unconscious. Droppers were used to precisely measure doses of this hazardous liquid. In Ju's phone, police discovered a screenshot of a messaging app conversation where he mentioned a sedative called C-fluorine, a drug labeled for general anesthesia. The discoveries didn't end there. In the apartment, authorities found 4 hidden cameras expertly installed for covered filming. Additionally, in the bedroom of his former student housing, they uncovered a pinhole camera, a device easily purchased on Amazon, marketed as ideal for undetectable recording. When questioned about these devices, Xiu claimed he was merely curious about how they worked. But a thorough search of his computer revealed frequent searches for terms like hidden cameras, covered recording devices, and spy camera watches. Investigators found 37 videos on Xiu's electronic devices, totaling over 6.5 terabytes of data. This included over 1,660 hours of Chinese language footage and more than 9 million social media messages. Some videos were recorded by Xiu himself, showing him engaging in sexual acts with women who appeared unconscious. Analysis revealed the videos were filmed in various locations, including Bloomsbury, London, the Elephant and Castle apartment, and unidentified sites in China. In the apartment's wardrobe, police also discovered a gold Fendi trophy box containing women's jewelry and clothing. They suspect these items belong to victims of his attacks, with Xiu likely keeping them as mementos and trophies of his crimes. When confronted about the videos, Xiu claimed ignorance, saying his phone might have accidentally downloaded them due to a mistake. However, he admitted to filming some women's faces while they slept, but stubbornly insisted this didn't constitute a violation. After his arrest, Xiu was charged at London's Central Criminal Court with a litany of serious crimes. 11 counts of assault, 12 counts of possessing extreme adult content, 3 counts of illegal recording, 1 count of unlawful detention, and 8 counts of possessing and distributing illicit substances. Despite the charges, Xiu denied all allegations. During the trial, police announced that potential victims could come forward with information at any time. Commander Kevin Southworth of the Metropolitan Police, speaking to the media, stated, "Investigators noted that no physical evidence such as phones, computers, or cameras from Xiu's time in Belfast 2017 to 2019 was found, making it impossible to determine if he committed similar acts during that period. However, existing evidence confirms that between 2019 and 2024, Xiu carried out 11 assaults on 10 identified victims. Police fear the true number of victims could be far higher. The videos suggest at least 50 other women may have been assaulted during this time. Including the 10 confirmed victims, the total could reach at least 60 women. Commander Southworth described Ju as a cunning, sinister, and calculating predator who often targeted women through social gatherings or online platforms. He noted that due to the highly sophisticated and secretive nature of the crimes, many victims might still be unaware of their victimization. Police urged any woman who had been alone with Xiu, especially between 2019 and 2024 in London and surrounding areas, to come forward and report. The Metropolitan Police also urged women in the Chinese community who had interacted with Zhou Xinhao, particularly those who may have encountered him while he was in China to come forward and assist with the investigation. Victims could also report information online through a public portal for serious crimes. So, what turned Zhou Zhenhao into the notorious criminal he is today? How did he plan and execute these horrific crimes? In November 2020, Zhou Zhenhao returned to China due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the London police investigation, during his time in China, he used an obscure messaging app to download a guide on using sedatives to incapacitate and assault young women. Additionally, on his phone, police found an advertisement featuring a sleeping woman, accompanied by a promise of guaranteed effectiveness for a sedative being sold. Most notably, authorities recovered 7 videos filmed by Zhou himself documenting assaults on women in China. At the trial, the victims in these videos were anonymized and referred to as B, C, D, E, F, G, and T. Analysis revealed that 5 of the 7 women appeared completely unconscious during the assaults. Some haunting details from the videos include victim G briefly regained consciousness mid-assault, struggling to stay awake, but ultimately failing. Victim H appeared in a video, assaulted while sleeping so deeply that she was snoring loudly. Victim D was in a coma state, but woke up partway through, attempting to resist and repeatedly pleading with Zhou, "Please don't do this." These videos were deeply disturbing and caused severe emotional distress to the point that, during the trial, many jurors visibly struggled to contain their emotions. Some broke down in tears while several female jurors had to close their eyes, unable to bear watching the video evidence. In response, the judge issued a special directive, allowing the jury frequent breaks to alleviate the intense pain and anger that surfaced throughout the proceedings. In reality, identifying and verifying the Chinese victims was an immense challenge for British police investigators alone. However, under UK law, even though Zhou Xinhao is a foreign national who committed crimes in another country, he could still be held criminally accountable in the UK. Since he was residing on British soil at the time of his arrest, as long as his actions were deemed illegal in the UK, he could be prosecuted under British criminal law, regardless of where the crimes took place. Even though the Chinese victims in the videos had neither come forward nor filed complaints, a representative from the UK's Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, emphasized, upholding justice for the unnamed women assaulted in these videos is of utmost importance. We are determined to see this through to the end. As of now, British police are working closely with the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, to expand the investigation, especially following international reports indicating that Zhou Zhenhao is a systematic repeat offender, not only targeting women in China, but also continuing to prey on Chinese female students in the UK. After returning to London, he committed at least 4 assaults on Chinese international students using similar methods. Thanks to proactive media coverage, police identified 2 of these victims, who have since cooperated with authorities by providing statements to aid the investigation. However, the other 2 videos both feature the same woman whose identity remains unknown and unverified by police. At the trial, 2 videos showed a student referred to as a being assaulted by Zhou in his dorm room in Bloomsbury. However, police noted they have yet to determine whether these incidents occurred before or after the COVID-19 pandemic began. In the first video, student A appears unconscious, but later wakes up, pleading with Zujin how to stop. Her voice is clearly audible, saying, "I hate you." While Zhu responds with a cold laugh, "Stop struggling. It's useless. This place is soundproof." The video also shows visible scratch marks on his back believed to be from the victim's attempts to resist. This dialogue explains why Zhu had previously insisted on renting a well-soundproofed apartment. He often exploited social gatherings, offering to escort women home before luring them to his apartment to commit his depraved acts. In fact, some students had long felt uneasy about Zhu's behavior toward women. During university social events, he frequently made crude remarks and even pressured female students to drink cocktails he prepared himself. Although some peers repeatedly tried to stop him from leaving bars or karaoke venues with intoxicated women, there were instances when he took advantage of lapses in oversight to take them away. The second video shown in court also involved student A with content similar to the first. Reports indicate both videos were recorded using a thumb-sized spy camera placed on a shelf across the room. When detectives first discovered these videos, they couldn't extract the audio. Zhu insisted the woman in the footage had fully consented to intimacy with him. However, just before the trial, technicians managed to recover the audio, providing irrefutable evidence that left Zhu with no defense. The woman in the video was clearly impaired by alcohol or drugs, but still begged him to stop. Faced with this, Zhu changed his story before the jury, claiming it was merely role play to heighten excitement, a scripted scenario they had agreed upon, with the woman simply acting along. So, how did he claim these two videos were made? He stated that he and student A met through a dating app. In April 2022, after meeting in person, they were intimate. When A visited his place a second time, he allegedly discussed his particular fetish with her. According to Zhu, they said she enjoyed wearing uniforms and the role play involved pretending to be assaulted. They then recorded the video together. Police immediately challenged this, pointing out that the woman in the video was clearly in a coma state. At first with her eyes closed. How could she have been acting? Zhu brazenly claimed, "Each month I have at least 5 relationships with different women. I tell them to close their eyes and not move. During dates, I ask for permission to film beforehand. Then I let the women voluntarily use those sedatives. The women in the videos are all acting, helping me fulfill this fetish. In return, they get money and gifts." When prosecutors pressed him on why he was drawn to unconscious women, Zhu said he didn't know. It just felt appealing. Asked how long he had been committing these acts, he replied, "I have nothing to say." Even more outrageous, when prosecutors asked if he enjoyed controlling women, Zhu smirked in court and said, "I'm excellent in every way, better than others. I'm an outstanding person." In response to this absurdity, Commander Kevin Southworth stated that Zhu was clearly a depraved and cowardly predator who assaulted his victims using the most despicable methods. Though police have yet to locate student A. During the trial, 2 other women bravely testified, providing statements that incriminated Zhu. Nancy, a Chinese international student in the UK, described meeting Zhu Xinho in May 2023 when she asked him some math-related questions. A few days later, she attended a party at the luxury apartment in Elephant and Castle, where a friend lived 2 floors above. During the party, Nancy drank alcohol. After the party ended, Xiu invited her to his room to continue drinking and play games. Noticing Nancy was heavily intoxicated and unsteady, Xiu offered to let her stay overnight at his apartment, claiming he didn't want her to go home alone. Nancy recalled jokingly saying in her impaired state that if he gave her 100,000 yuan, approximately $14,000, she'd stay, but not for intimacy. However, once in his room, she was forced to drink more alcohol and was pulled into the bedroom. Their conversation was recorded by a hidden camera at the head of the bed, activated by motion sensors. The footage and audio from this camera later became critical evidence in the case. In the video, Xiu repeatedly urged Nancy to finish her drink, saying, "Don't waste it." Nancy found his behavior strange and wanted to leave, even lying on the floor crying. But Xiu forcibly stopped her, pulling her shirt from behind and insisting she finished the drink. In desperation, Nancy was coerced into downing a large glass of vodka, after which she remembered little, feeling dizzy, unable to resist, and eventually losing consciousness. The video captured Nancy being assaulted, her screams, cries, and resistance audible. She even sat up on the bed, attempting to flee, but was pushed back down each time. When she left, Nancy was in such a rush that she forgot her purse. The next day, she felt nauseous, couldn't eat or sleep, and suffered severe emotional trauma. On May 21, 2023, she reported the incident to the London police. Officers visited her to discuss the event, but Nancy, unfamiliar with UK laws, hindered by language barriers and limited interpretation services, struggled to explain clearly. As a result, she received no positive response and no investigators followed up after her report. Feeling confused and hurt, Nancy decided to abandon legal action against J. But unable to endure silently, she messaged him, threatening to expose his vile behavior and informing him she had contacted the police. She also posted on the Chinese social media platform Ziyahongwu, publicly denouncing his actions, including his photo and warning other women to beware of men like him. After the incident came to light, the Metropolitan Police expressed regret that Nancy hadn't received adequate interpretation support. 8 months after her initial call, detectives saw her post and reached out again. Police informed Nancy they had found videos on Xiu's phone of him forcing her to drink and images of her assault. Her Ziyahonga post also led to the discovery of a second victim, L, who responded that she had a similar experience. L recounted meeting Xiu in August 2021 at age 19. They had consensual intimacy and L hoped for a serious relationship, but Zhu treated her as a one-night stand. On September 13, 2021, her birthday, she and Zhu joined friends at the Hedo Hot Pot restaurant in London's Chinatown to celebrate. After dinner, the group moved to another venue, renting a private room and drinking several bottles of Jack Daniels. Elle couldn't recall what happened next, only remembering vomiting on the street and losing her credit card. Somehow, she ended up at Zhu's dorm. When she awoke, he was on top of her. Elle said she asked him to stop, but then lost consciousness again. The next morning, she left feeling disoriented and unwell. She questioned Xiu, unsure if his actions were illegal, but he denied everything, lying that she had been awake. On March 5, 2025, the court confirmed Xiao Xinhao as a particularly serious offender, convicting him of assault, using sedatives to incapacitate victims, and recording depraved videos. He was found guilty of 11 counts of assault, having harmed 10 women, and filming 9 of them. These crimes span 2 countries, including 7 Chinese women. However, only 2 international students have been identified, with the identities of the remaining 8 women still unconfirmed. Xiao was also convicted of 3 counts of voyeurism, 10 counts of possessing extreme content, 1 count of unlawful detention, 3 counts of possessing illicit substances with intent to use them for crimes. However, the court dismissed charges related to possessing extreme content and substances specifically for criminal acts. Sira Pike of the Crown Prosecution Service expressed heartfelt gratitude to the courageous women who came forward to denounce Zhu's heinous crimes, saying, "They showed incredible resilience and bravery. Their testimonies were pivotal in this trial." The presiding judge warned that on June 19, 2025, during sentencing, Xiao could face a lengthy prison term. Following the case, University College London immediately suspended Zhu's studies and revoked his student status on January 27, 2024. The university also stated it has supported affected students and staff through its online portal and is assisting police with the investigation. Time and again, incidents of sedatives being used to assault others continue to occur worldwide, reminding us to stay vigilant in protecting ourselves. Beyond never accepting drinks from strangers, we must also be cautious with acquaintances we don't fully know. Avoid going to someone's home or drinking pre-prepared beverages they offer. After all, you can know but not a heart. Caution is always necessary. When going out, always stay with trusted friends and never go alone. Ensure everyone in your group gets home safely, leaving no opportunity for predators to strike. Story 2. Now we'll dive into a gripping and complex story from South Korea, where the ethnic Chinese North Korean community exists as a unique entity. Though they share a similar language and cultural roots, they're often seen as outsiders. The discrimination they face isn't always overt insults or actions. It's embedded in the subtle details of daily life. In 2012, this discrimination intensified following a shocking crime when an individual from this community committed a crime. The entire group bore the weight of societal prejudice. The case not only rocked the nation, but also sparked a major overhaul of South Korea's 112 emergency hotline system. What exactly happened that year? Why did the South Korean public lose faith in the police's handling of the situation? Now, let's travel back to April 1, 2012, a fateful Sunday. At 10:50 p.m., the Gyeonggi Provincial Police Agency's 112 Emergency Center received a distress call. The caller was a woman, her voice trembling, reporting that she had just been assaulted by a stranger. In her panic, she couldn't pinpoint her exact location, only mentioning that the incident occurred on a road between Jaedong Elementary School and Wolgak Park. The police began asking questions to gather more details, but at that moment, a loud noise erupted on the other end. Like someone breaking down a door, and the woman screamed in terror. "I was wrong. Uncle, I'm sorry." At the time, Phone signal tracking technology was still limited. The police could only look up the registration details of the phone number. They discovered the caller was Kwakyan Su, name changed, with a registered address in Gansan, Jalabakdu Province. The JNG police immediately contacted the Gansan police station to report the incident. However, upon reaching Kwakyan Su's family, they learned she no longer lived in Gunan. She had moved to Swan. After numerous back and forth communications between departments, it wasn't until 12:55 a.m., nearly 2 hours after the initial call, that the Swan Central Police Station received orders to head to the area Kwak Yansu had mentioned. But the real trouble was just beginning. The police only had a vague location to work with, lacking any precise details. 11 officers were dispatched, but they could only wander aimlessly around Jerong Elementary School, searching in vain. Meanwhile, Kwakyan Su's older sister, upon hearing of her siblings' plight, rushed to join the search effort. However, the area was a densely populated residential neighborhood, and it was the middle of the night. To avoid disturbing residents, the police had to proceed cautiously. They pressed their ears against doors and peered through windows, listening for any suspicious sounds. Time dragged on with no leads. At 2:32 a.m., the police decided to reinforce their efforts. 2 more investigative teams were added, bringing the total search party to 21 officers. 8 hours after the distress call, the police sent 2 additional patrol cars to the area near Wulok Park to expand the search radius. But by 9 a.m., 10 hours after the report, they still had nothing. Even the director of the Swan Central Police Station personally joined the operation, but no clues emerged. The investigative team began carrying Kwak Yansu's photo, going door-to-door to ask residents if they recognized her. Everyone they spoke to said they didn't know her. At 11 a.m., during one of these interviews, a resident casually complained, "I couldn't sleep last night because the couple next door was arguing loudly. Could you please warn them not to disturb the neighbors like that?" The police immediately headed to the location the man pointed out. He was the owner of a paint shop who had slept in his store the previous night. Next to the shop was an iron gate leading to a narrow alley at the end of which stood a residential apartment. From the ground floor unit, the man had heard strange noises all night. A woman crying, screaming, and repeatedly saying things like, "I'm sorry, and I was wrong." Oddly, since morning, he hadn't seen anyone enter or leave the apartment. This account jolted the police. They recalled Kwasi Su's call where she had also cried out, "I was wrong," before the line went dead. The team immediately suspected the victim might be inside this apartment. They loudly demanded that whoever was inside open the door, warning that if there was no response, they would forcibly enter. Just seconds later, the door creaked open. A middle-aged man stepped out, his face eerily calm, but instantly a sharp metallic stench of blood hit the officers, sending a chill down their spines. Without hesitation, the police moved inside to investigate. The apartment was oppressively small. Stepping through the door, they faced a cramped kitchen. Beyond it was a tiny bedroom, and next to the kitchen, a minuscule bathroom. But what made their blood run cold was a large object draped in a white sheet taking up most of the room's space. The foul odor in the air was now unmistakable. The officers approached and lifted the white sheep. Beneath it lay a body reduced to nearly just bones sprawled in the middle of the room. Beside it were 3 black plastic bags stuffed with something. Upon closer inspection, they saw that all the flesh had been meticulously stripped from the body. Inside the 3 black bags were countless pieces of human flesh carved from the victim herself. After a grim count, the police discovered a total of 365 body fragments. However, the victim's face remained intact, allowing them to quickly identify her as Kwok Yin-soo, the woman who had made the desperate emergency call the previous night. Kwok Yin-soo was a factory worker at a phone component manufacturing plant. She led a simple life, going to work and returning home, rarely getting into any disputes with others. According to the autopsy, she had died around 5 a.m. that morning. There was no doubt the perpetrator was the cold-faced, middle-aged man who had opened the door. Strangely, he didn't resist. Instead, he calmly admitted to killing the victim. The man was Wu Yuan-chun, 42 years old. Born in Inner Mongolia, China. He had only completed elementary school before returning to his hometown to work as a farmer. 5 years earlier, Wu Yuan-chan had come to South Korea as a legal migrant worker with a valid visa, taking up construction jobs. Though living in South Korea, he still had a wife and child in China. So over the years, he frequently traveled between the 2 countries to support his family. Before the crime, he had sustained his livelihood through manual labor. Colleagues described him as quiet, insecure, and a loner. Despite his reserved nature, he was considered kind and sincere. During group meals, he even generously treated others. But no one could have imagined that beneath this gentle facade lay a deeply twisted and sinister personality. Though his income was decent, Wu Yuan-chun spent over 20% of his monthly earnings, roughly $400,001 or about $300 on entertainment to satisfy his desires. Over time, a depraved belief took root in his mind. As long as I have money, I can have women. This obsession spiraled out of control and he spent hours each day on his phone, consumed by adult content, trapped in an inescapable addiction. As an ethnic Chinese North Korean, Wu Yuan-chun spoke fluent Korean, facing no communication barriers. Before the police, he recounted the crime with chilling composure. According to him, on the evening of April 1st, after finishing work and returning home, he watched a movie while eating grilled meat and drinking. He was in a good mood. After the meal, he stepped outside to smoke a cigarette to aid digestion, leaning against the wall just in front of his door. At that moment, an unexpected collision occurred. Wu Yuan-chan bumped into Kwasi-soo as she walked by. According to his initial statement, he immediately bowed and apologized. But instead of letting it go, Kwok Yun pointed at his face, berating him harshly. Fearing they'd draw attention from passers-by, he tried to de-escalate the situation. Yet her aggressive demeanor ignited his rage. In a fit of anger, he dragged her into his apartment. Under the light, he noticed her beautiful face, and a primal urge took over. He offered her money for sex, but when she screamed, demanding 2 million won, approximately $1,800. At the time, he flew into a blind fury. Losing all control, he assaulted her right there in his apartment. As Kwok Yun-soo sobbed and threatened to call the police, fear consumed Woo Yuen-chun. In a panic, he decided to eliminate any risk of consequences. Ruthlessly, he took her life. After the murder, he stole the cash and gold necklace she was wearing. According to his confession, the crime seemed like a spontaneous act born from a momentary burst of rage. Within a single day, the police had apprehended the killer, and they even prided themselves on their swift, efficient response. Initially, they felt a sense of accomplishment for solving the case so quickly, believing they had handled it well. But when the victim's family learned the details, they immediately raised doubts. Kwasi-su's father insisted, "My daughter was a kind, polite person. She was always gentle, even with strangers, and never spoke rudely to anyone." The killer's statement doesn't match her character at all. Fueled by the family's determination, the police were compelled to review surveillance footage from the area where the crime occurred. What they uncovered turned the entire narrative upside down. The surveillance video retrieved from a camera at the back gate of Jong Elementary School, about 50 m from the crime scene, was grainy. But after technical restoration, the truth came to light. At 10:32 p.m. on April 1, Kwasi-su was walking along the road when Woo Yuen-chan suddenly emerged, shoved her to the ground, and dragged her into his apartment. He had been lying in wait behind a utility pole hidden from her line of sight. This was no accidental collision. It was a premeditated crime. Without the family's relentless suspicion, the truth might have remained buried forever. Watching the footage, Kwok Yun-su's younger brother couldn't hold back tears. He choked out that his sister lived frugally, often wearing the same outfit every day. Her predictable routine, her clothing, her schedule may have made her an easy target for Woo Yuen-chun. Due to the severe dismemberment of the body, it took several days of forensic analysis to determine the cause of death: asphyxiation. But the nightmare didn't end there. During a thorough search of the bathroom in the suspect's apartment, police discovered 11 small human bone fragments lodged deep in the drainage pipe. What sent shivers down everyone's spine was that after DNA testing, these fragments did not belong to Kwok Yun-soo. The discovery of the 11 mysterious bone fragments raised a chilling question. Could Woo Yuen-chun be a serial offender? Faced with undeniable evidence, he finally confessed the full horrifying details of that fateful night. As captured by the surveillance camera. Around 10:30 p.m. on April 1, Woo Yuen-chan had been lying in wait and suddenly dragged Kwok Yun-soo into his apartment as she passed by. He intended to assault her immediately, but failed. Instead of giving up, he locked her in the bedroom and went to the bathroom. Seizing the moment in her panic, Kwok Yun quickly locked the door from the inside and frantically called the 112 emergency hotline for help. Hearing the lock, Woo Yuen-chan rushed back, trying to break down the door. Kwok Yun-soo used all her strength to barricade it, preventing him from entering. Undeterred, he climbed through a window connecting the kitchen to the bedroom, grabbed her by the hair, and threatened her to open the door. After several violent attempts, the door finally gave way. To ensure she couldn't escape, Woo Yuen-chun bound Kwok Yun-soo with duct tape, brutally tortured her, and then threw her onto the bed. Around 3 a.m., he attempted to assault her again, but failed once more. Losing all patience, he flew into a rage, grabbed a wrench, struck her head with force, and then strangled her to death. After the murder, Wu Yuanchan's actions grew even more gruesome. He turned on his phone, watching adult content while placing a sharpening stone nearby. Then with a kitchen knife, he methodically dismembered the victim in a chillingly deliberate manner. When asked about the 11 mysterious human bone fragments found in the bathroom drainage system, he coldly denied any knowledge, claiming they didn't belong to him and insisting he had never harmed anyone else. When the case broke in the media, South Korea erupted in outrage. The public not only condemned Wu Yuanchan with scathing curses, but also criticized the police for a series of blunders in the investigation and handling of the case. From delayed responses to nearly overlooking the truth, these failures led the public to question the competence of law enforcement. Kwok Yun-soo had called the 112 emergency hotline at 10:50 p.m. for help. But it wasn't until 11 a.m. the next day that police identified the crime scene. A staggering 12 hours later, far too long to save a life. Forensic reports confirmed Kwok Yun-soo died around 5 a.m., meaning she was still alive for 6 hours after her call. Had the authorities acted faster, this tragedy might have been prevented. But in reality, the police response was astonishingly sluggish. They spent excessive time just gathering the caller's personal information instead of launching an immediate search. It took 2 hours after the call for the police to begin a serious effort. Though Kwasi Soo couldn't provide an exact location, she had specified a clear area. The road from Jaidong Elementary School to Wulok Park, a radius of less than a kilometer. The crime scene was just 600 m from the nearest police station. Yet, the police failed to find any leads. Their search efficiency was alarmingly low. Police claimed they searched all lit-up shops and homes in the area, even knocking on Wu Yanchan's door, but with no response. They simply moved on. However, the paint shop owner next door told a different story. He insisted he worked until 12:30 a.m. that night, but saw no police searching the area. Kwasi Soo's older sister also testified, revealing shocking details. That night, she joined the police in the search for her sister, riding in a car with 2 officers. The car passed near the crime scene multiple times, at one point coming within 20 m. But what infuriated her was that the 2 officers were yawning, dozing off, and acting indifferent, as if the matter didn't concern them. Many argued the most effective way to find someone would have been to check surveillance cameras immediately. Shockingly, the police didn't thoroughly review the footage at the time of the report. They may not have even bothered to look. This negligence caused critical leads to be missed, prolonging the search and leading to a tragic outcome. Under intense public pressure, 3 days after the incident, on April 4, the police issued a public apology. They explained that Kwok Yun-soo's call to the dispatcher lasted only 15 seconds before the perpetrator forced her to hang up, limiting the information they could gather. But was this explanation enough to quell the public's anger or the victim's family? The delayed response severely hampered the investigation. More notably, Wu Wanchan's statement contradicted the police's account. He claimed that after breaking into the room, he didn't see Kwok Yun-soo's phone. Only after killing her did he find it in a corner, its screen already off. He insisted he didn't know she had called the police until his arrest. In the days that followed, the police repeatedly revised their statements, further fueling public confusion. Initially, they said Kwa Yin Su's call lasted 15 seconds. Later, they adjusted this to 1 minute 20 seconds and finally confirmed the actual duration was 7 minutes 36 seconds. This inconsistency sparked widespread doubts about the authorities' transparency. Kwasi Yunsu's family demanded the full recording of the call be released, but the police refused, citing potential violations of privacy laws and negative societal impacts. However, under mounting public pressure, they eventually released a 1 minute 20-second segment. They stated the remainder mostly contains sounds of torture, duct tape being applied, and Yoon Su's desperate pleas. Even this brief segment revealed details that further enraged the public. As soon as the call connected, Kwak Yin Su tried to report her location. "I'm in a house in front of Wulok Park. I've been assaulted." But astonishingly, the dispatchers seemed to grasp the situation poorly. They asked pointless questions like, "Is it Wulok Park? Who did this? And were you really assaulted?" These questions not only wasted precious time, but pushed Kwak Yin Su into a state of extreme panic. Her heart pounded, her mind nearly paralyzed. Behind her, Wu Yuan-chun was trying to break down the door. In desperation, she couldn't pinpoint her exact location or identify her attacker. But in a fight for survival, she tried to describe her situation. "I'm in a house in front of Wulok Park. I don't know exactly which one. It's a strange man, an older guy." In her final seconds, her trembling voice rose to a near scream. "Please hurry." When Wu Yuan-chan broke through the door, Kwak Yin Su's voice abruptly fell silent, leaving an eerie stillness in the call. In the later part of the recording, with the victim's voice gone, the dispatcher began whispering to a colleague. They casually speculated, "It sounds like a couple arguing." Even more shocking, in the final moments, one dispatcher said, "Just hang up already." And then they actively ended the call, abandoning the last chance to save a life. As investigative details emerged, a wave of outrage swept across South Korea like a tidal wave. The police's negligence not only horrified the public but also shattered trust in the system. Under immense pressure, Yanji Police Chief Cao Chi Yan-ho issued a public apology. But the public's anger continued to surge. He eventually held an emergency press conference announcing his resignation to take responsibility. Additionally, 11 officers directly involved in the case were disciplined for their serious mishandling. And for Kwak Yin's family, these measures weren't enough. 8 days after the incident, they gathered at the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency, staging a protest against the authorities' irresponsibility and attempts to conceal information. They posed a heart-wrenching question. South Korea, a global leader in information technology, couldn't locate a caller in a timely manner. They believed the police's delays had condemned Kwak Yin Su to her fate. The victims' families' trust in the authorities had all but collapsed. They no longer wanted to rely solely on police updates, demanding to participate directly in the investigation to uncover the truth and understand the handling of the case. South Korea's National Police Agency Commissioner Cho Hyun-ho personally met with them. In the discussion, he candidly admitted that the authorities had made grave errors. Addressing the family's demands, he promised to compile a list of all involved personnel, ensuring accountability to the fullest extent. Those with minor infractions would be sacked while those with serious violations could face criminal prosecution. He went further, delivering a public apology speech at the National Police Agency headquarters, taking full responsibility and ultimately resigning as a gesture of remorse. On April 12, 11 days after the crime, Kwasi Yinsu's family finally received the full recording of her fateful emergency call from the police. Listening to it, the victim's uncle broke down in tears. He shared in anguish that his niece's desperate screams tore at his heart, leaving a wound that would never heal. What enraged the family and the public most was the dispatcher's demeanor in the recording. Their tone was casual, as if chatting with a friend, showing no urgency in a life or death situation. Kwasi Yinsu's aunt painfully recounted hearing the sound of duct tape being torn and her niece crying out, "It hurt so much," in despair. Yet, the dispatcher remained indifferent, even speculating it was just a marital dispute. She couldn't comprehend or forgive such callousness. Kwasi Yinsu's younger brother also voiced fierce criticism, asking indignantly, who would use duct tape to tie up their spouse during a normal argument? Even a layperson could recognize the severity of the situation. So, why were the dispatchers so lacking in sensitivity? Their unprofessionalism led the public to question the police force's crisis management capabilities. The dispatcher later explained that he was a new recruit, never properly trained to handle emergency calls. When the report came in, he tried to relay the information to officers near Wulok Park, but the system failed and the message wasn't sent. 15 minutes after the call was cut off, he attempted to retrieve the audio file, but ironically, the server crashed. It wasn't until nearly 2 hours later that the system was back online. The police held an internal hearing to review the errors, but the process was not made public. After evaluation, they admitted the investigation had serious flaws. First, Kwasi Yinsu had clearly stated she was being held in a house, but this critical detail wasn't communicated in time. As a result, search efforts mistakenly focused on streets, playgrounds, and outdoor areas instead of checking residences. Second, upon receiving the order, the Swan Central Police Station assessed the case as a simple assault, dispatching just over a dozen officers without unified leadership. This led to a chaotic, disorganized search. As for why the call duration kept changing, first 15 seconds, then 1 minute, 20 seconds, and finally over 7 minutes. The police explained it was because the head of the Criminal Investigation Division at Swan Police Station failed to verify the actual time. The call duration updates they released were based on assumptions, not thorough confirmation. In short, the police's actions in this case were riddled with severe errors, from delays to a lack of accountability. The incident not only devastated Kwasi Yinsu's family, but also sparked a wave of outrage across South Korean society. The aftermath of the case had far-reaching consequences. South Koreans grew fearful of violent crimes, leading to a surge in sales of self-defense items like pepper spray and stun batons. An air of unease settled over the nation, and on an online forum, a shocking post emerged, sending shockwaves through the country. The poster, claiming to have just ended a 2-year relationship and feeling dejected, declared he wanted to commit an act far Worse than Wu Yuanchun to gain attention. He announced he would target the first woman in her 20s he saw at exit 4 of a subway station. The post caused widespread panic. Fortunately, police swiftly tracked down the individual and arrested him. He later confessed it was a malicious prank born out of boredom, not expecting the situation to spiral so far. Despite his remorse, his actions further heightened public anxiety. Wu Yuanchan's case wasn't just shocking for its brutality. It also ignited debates about his true motives. Did he merely intend to assault Kwok Yin-soo as he claimed, standing 1.8 m tall and weighing 80 kilograms with a robust physique honed by construction work? Wu Yuanchun had overwhelming physical strength. That night, he easily dragged Kwok Yin-soo dozens of meters and bound her tightly with duct tape. But what chilled people most was how he dismembered her body. If his goal was simply to dispose of the body, perpetrators typically cut it into larger pieces. But Wu Yuanchun acted like a butcher. He meticulously peeled the skin, separated the fat beneath, and sliced the muscles into hundreds of uniform pieces, 365 in total, using just a kitchen knife. This methodical approach led many to question, was this truly just a murder? Disturbing theories emerged, suggesting he might be involved in cannibalism or even organ trafficking. Surveillance footage from that night added to the suspicion. Besides Kwok Yin-soo and Wu Yuanchun, the camera captured another woman passing by. Had it not been for chance, she might have been his next victim. Combined with the 11 bone fragments found in the bathroom drain, unrelated to Kwok Yin-soo, many began to believe Wu Yuanchun wasn't a first-time offender, possibly even a serial killer who may have committed crimes in China. However, no concrete evidence has yet confirmed these suspicions. Typically, perpetrators quickly dispose of a victim's body to destroy evidence. But Wu Yuanchun was different. He lingered at the crime scene for an extended period as if unconcerned about being caught. However, an unexpected development shed some light on the mystery. After examination by the Institute of Scientific Investigation, the 11 bone fragments in the drain were identified as belonging to chickens, pigs, and other animals, not humans. This finding made the theory of Wu Yuanchun being a serial killer less convincing. 2 months after the crime in June 2012, Wu Yuanchun's trial began. At the 7th District Court, he was charged with murder, desecration of a corpse, and suspected involvement in organ trafficking. During his transfer to court, an unexpected incident occurred. On the transport van, Wu Yuanchun encountered another inmate arrested for drug trafficking. When the inmate saw Wu Yuanchun giggling at a woman outside and incessantly tapping his foot, he erupted in anger, shouting, "You're Wu Yuanchun, right? Stop tapping your foot. Reflect on your crimes." Wu Yuanchun flew into a rage, attacking the man. The altercation only stopped when police intervened forcefully to separate them. At the trial, when the judge asked why Wu Yuanchun confessed so readily, he replied with a blank expression. But when asked why he dismembered the body so brutally, his response stunned the courtroom. The prosecution presented compelling evidence, including the surveillance video capturing the moment of the crime and the recording of Kwok Yun-soo's emergency call. As these recordings played, Wu Yuanchun maintained a chillingly impassive expression, showing no emotion. Meanwhile, Quasi-Sus family couldn't hold back their grief. They sobbed uncontrollably in the courtroom, devastated by the ruthless destruction of their family's happiness. The victim's mother, eyes red with tears, knelt before the judge, pleading, "Please punish him severely." After reviewing all evidence and circumstances, the judge deemed Wu Yuan Chun an utterly ruthless criminal, not only for committing a savage murder, but also for dismembering the victim into hundreds of pieces, possibly with the intent to sell her flesh or organs. The judge viewed this behavior as a clear indication of supplying body parts to others even after his arrest. Despite facing the court, Wu Yuan Chun showed no remorse or any sign of wanting to change. Given the brutality of his crime, many believed a death sentence was inevitable. Following the trial, the Swan District Court found Wu Yuan Chun guilty of murder and desecration of a corpse, sentencing him to death. Upon hearing the verdict, Wu Yuan Chun merely closed his eyes and bowed his head in silence, but he quickly announced an appeal, stating he did not accept the ruling. Kwok-Yin's family, while hoping for justice, felt the verdict didn't fully clarify the case. They believed Wu Yuan Chun's true motives remained a mystery, and the trial had been rushed, leaving many questions unanswered. In an interview, the victim's brother expressed suspicion that Wu Yuan Chun might be linked to a human trafficking network or even have accomplices. These doubts left the family unable to fully accept the trial's outcome. At the appeals hearing in the Seoul High Court, however, the judge issued a controversial ruling. While acknowledging the extreme cruelty of Wu Yuan Chun's crime, they found no clear evidence proving his intent to traffic flesh or organs. The only confirmed charges were murder and desecration of a corpse. Considering this was his first offense, the court deemed the death penalty too harsh and reduced the sentence to life imprisonment without parole. In the final hearing at the Supreme Court of South Korea, the penalty was adjusted further compared to the Swan Court's ruling. If Wu Yuan Chun were ever released, he would be required to wear an electronic monitoring device for the next 30 years and have his criminal record retained for 10 years. This decision sparked immediate controversy. Many citizens criticized the court for seemingly prioritizing the perpetrators' rights over the victims, rendering justice incomplete in the public's eyes. In the final hearing at the Supreme Court of South Korea, the penalty was adjusted further compared to the Swan Court's ruling. If Wu Yuan Chun were ever released, he would be required to wear an electronic monitoring device for the next 30 years and have his criminal record retained for 10 years. This decision sparked immediate controversy. Many citizens criticized the court for seemingly prioritizing the perpetrators' rights over the victims, rendering justice incomplete in the public's eyes. Refusing to back down, the family appealed again. Ultimately, the Supreme Court of South Korea acknowledged the authorities' mistakes and ordered compensation of 80 million won, around $56,000, for the family. While this was a step forward, the sum could hardly compensate for the pain they endured. After the trial, Wu Yuan Chun's name soared to the top of South Korea's online search trends, becoming a national focal point. He was incarcerated at North Gangbok Prison No. 1, formerly Chong Prison. According to fellow inmates, he performed a daily ritual of bowing and apologizing to Kwok-Yin 108 times as a gesture of remorse. Yet this behavior did little to earn forgiveness. For many, his apparent regret couldn't erase the horrors of his actions. His identity as an ethnic Chinese North Korean further fueled public anger. Even before the case, this community was a sensitive topic in South Korea, seen as compatriots by some, but criticized by others for allegedly prioritizing China's interests. Wu Yuan-chan's actions poured fuel on the fire, intensifying ethnic tensions. Some netizens expressed, "I'm not afraid of people who look menacing, but if they're ethnic Chinese North Korean, I feel uneasy." However, others pushed back, arguing that it was unfair to judge an entire community based on one individual like Wu Yuan-chun, as it deepened unjust stereotypes. The case sent shockwaves through society, prompting South Korea's National Assembly to pass the 112 location tracking law. Previously, police couldn't track a caller's location during emergencies. Post-case, the new law allowed authorities to track a caller's location in urgent situations, even if their phone was off. Additionally, the case forced a major internal overhaul of the South Korean police. Authorities issued a 112 emergency response manual to all emergency centers nationwide, detailing how to handle various reports and providing in-depth training for dispatchers. The manual emphasized avoiding redundant questions and prioritizing the caller's safety above all. The police also introduced a new policy classifying reports into 5 severity levels, from 0 highest for major crimes requiring immediate action to 4 lowest, typically non-urgent consultations or reports. This system enabled more efficient resource allocation, ensuring timely responses to critical cases. To appease public anger, the police announced measures to prevent crimes targeting foreigners in South Korea. However, human rights organizations strongly objected, arguing that the core issue wasn't the perpetrator's nationality, but the police's initial delays and cover UPS. They stressed that blaming an ethnic group only diverted attention from the authorities' real failures. The case not only stunned the public with Wu Yuan's brutality, but also left a lingering sorrow over Kwokwan's US failure to receive timely help. She had waited for rescue, clinging to hope, only to meet an irreversible fate. That pain remains an unhealed wound for her family and society. Story 3. At 1 p.m. on March 13, 2025, mobile phones across British Columbia, BC, Canada suddenly blared with a loud alert. The system announced that a 2-year-old boy named Theodore Lim had been abducted from a family medical center on East Broadway in Vancouver. The suspect was Davis Lim, driving a blue 2006 Jetta. Many who saw the alert initially speculated that the abductor and the child might be father and son. Not only did they share the same last name, but statistics show that 9 out of 10 child abductions are committed by family members, often desperate parents who've lost custody, and resort to such measures. Fortunately, in many cases, the child is eventually found safe. Some children even find the experience of hiding with a parent thrilling, like a real-life game of hide-and-seek. But this alert contained a line that sent chills through everyone. The abducted child has a severe congenital condition, unable to eat or breathe independently, without the life-sustaining medical equipment. From the hospital, his life is in danger with every passing minute. In the wanted photo provided by police, Davis was seen carrying the child while holding a black box, a portable ventilator. Upon closer inspection, this wasn't a simple case of a father taking his child without notice. It was a true life or death escape. Why would this father take such a massive risk to abduct his son? Was it ignorance, selfishness, treating his son's life like a game, or was there a deeper reason? Thank you so much. According to police reports, Queen Elizabeth Park Medical Center discovered the child missing around 10:40 a.m. After reviewing surveillance footage from the hospital and parking lot, they immediately contacted the police. Authorities swiftly issued an Amber Alert for the child abduction and launched a province-wide manhunt. Their efficiency was nothing short of remarkable. Just as the public grew increasingly anxious for the critically ill boy, police announced at 5:42 p.m. on March 13, 2025 that they had located the Lim family. The boy was safely returned to the hospital for continued treatment. Davis Lim was arrested and now faces multiple felony charges, including abduction with intent to cause harm and child endangerment. Police footage showed the man being placed in a squad car. Their statement also revealed that inside Davis's vehicle were two older girls identified as his daughters and the boy's sisters. It appeared Davis had planned not just to take his son from the hospital, but to flee with all three of his children. Imagine the challenge of a grown man managing three children aged 2 to 7. One of whom was so critically ill that he required a ventilator to survive. While the police didn't specify how they located the family, it's possible Davis, realizing the mission was impossible, surrendered for the sake of his children's safety. So why did this father act so recklessly despite the consequences? Was he truly so impulsive as to make such a grave mistake? Soon after, someone uncovered a series of articles from the Vancouver Sun revealing that Davis Lim had been at the center of a highly controversial lawsuit over 2 years earlier. He had sued the British Columbia Ministry of Children and Family Development, MCFD, to regain custody of his son. Unlike parents who lose custody due to suspected neglect or abuse, Davis and his wife were recognized as responsible and loving. They lost custody of their son solely due to disagreements with the hospital over his treatment plan. So, what exactly happened? According to a Vancouver Sun reporter, Davis Lim is an ethnic Chinese man from Malaysia who immigrated to Canada with his parents as a child, settling in the coastal province of British Columbia. Davis studied economics at Simon Fraser University before joining the Canadian Army as a combat medic. After his military service, he met and quickly fell in love with a young white woman at church. Following their marriage, the couple moved to a farm over 400 kilometers northeast of Vancouver, learning to cultivate crops and operate tractors, embracing life as modern farmers. Over the next few years, they had 3 bright and beautiful daughters enjoying a peaceful rural life. But as Tolstoy once said, all happy families are alike, while every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. The Lim family's misfortune began on April 14, 2022. With the birth of their 4th child, the central figure in this abduction case, Theodore, whom we'll call Theo. Davis shared with the reporter that Theo's birth was starkly different from his sister's. The delivery room was eerily silent. No cries were heard. Doctors and nurses rushed in and out, their faces grim. Davis stayed by his wife's side, still weak from labor, his heart burning with anxiety, but unsure of what was wrong. The next half hour felt like an eternity for the parents. When Davis finally heard Theo's faint cry, like a kitten's whimper, he felt a Sliver of relief. But as he approached to hold his son, a doctor stopped him, explaining that the baby's condition was critical. The small hospital couldn't handle it, and they needed to arrange a medical helicopter to transfer Theo to BC Children's Hospital in Vancouver. With no room on the helicopter and his wife too frail to travel, Davis had to stay behind to care for her and their other children. It wasn't until 3 days later that he received a call from the hospital informing him that Theo's condition had stabilized and family could visit. Overjoyed, Davis drove to Vancouver. During the 5-hour journey, he braced himself for every possible health issue his son might face. But seeing Theo in the hospital still left him horrified. The tiny baby was hooked up to various machines with a breathing tube in his nose. Most alarming was a large syringe connected to an incision above Theo's stomach filled with a white liquid. Seeing his newborn son, just days old, endure such suffering brought Davis to tears. The doctor's diagnosis hit like a thunderbolt. Theo had a rare congenital condition called bacterial association affecting major organs like his kidneys, spine, anus, and esophagus with varying degrees of underdevelopment and malformation. His esophagus hadn't developed properly and didn't connect to his stomach. So doctors had to create an opening above his stomach to deliver nutrients hourly via syringe to sustain him. But even more critical than his inability to eat normally was Theo's heart condition. An echocardiogram revealed that both his aorta and pulmonary artery were abnormally connected to his right ventricle. Normally, the pulmonary artery connects to the right ventricle. But this anomaly placed an unbearable strain on Theo's tiny heart, risking heart failure at any moment. His lungs, deprived of sufficient blood flow, caused rapid breathing and cyanosis in his limbs, necessitating a ventilator to enhance blood and oxygen circulation. The machine couldn't be turned off for even a moment. Additionally, spinal deformities might mean Theo would never walk, potentially relying on a wheelchair for life. Such severe developmental defects could typically be detected during prenatal screenings. Either Davis and his wife never had these exams, or they discovered the issues, but chose to keep the baby. While the Vancouver Sun didn't specify the reason, subsequent events suggest the latter possibility. We'll explore why in more detail later. Despite the severity of Theo's condition, neither the doctors at BC Children's Hospital nor his parents gave up on the fragile life. The hospital assembled top specialists to devise a treatment and surgical plan involving dozens of steps to be carried out from when Theo was 3 months old until he turned 12. If all went as hoped, Theo could not only survive, but potentially live a near normal life. Though Canada's healthcare system covered treatment and recovery costs, the long-term process demanded immense effort and personal expense from the parents and immeasurable sacrifice. Davis and his wife didn't hesitate, believing every effort for their child was worthwhile. Even with the slimmest hope, they were determined to do their best. They devoted countless hours to Theo's meticulous care, even selling their beloved farm and moving to a small apartment in Surrey to be closer to the hospital. Davis took on odd jobs to support the family, spending every free moment at the hospital with Theo. Their dedication was undeniable. Had things continued this way, their story of perseverance and love might have led to a miraculous recovery for Theo, perhaps earning them a nomination for a Canada's Most Inspiring Award. But life is unpredictable, and unexpected twists soon emerged. According to the Vancouver Son, the honeymoon period between Davis and the hospital was short-lived. When Theo was less than a month old, serious disagreements over his treatment arose. The breaking point came when Theo contracted the coronavirus. With a near non-existent immune system, he had no defense against such a potent virus. After testing positive, Theo was admitted to the ICU, his life hanging by a thread. After 2 grueling weeks, enduring multiple episodes of respiratory arrest and cyanosis, Theo pulled through. However, his already underdeveloped lungs deteriorated further, making him permanently dependent on the ventilator. This near-death experience left Davis deeply critical of the hospital. He argued that since Theo had never left the hospital since birth, they should have known. Newborns have weak immunity and taken proper sterilization and protective measures to prevent infection. The responsibility, he insisted, lay with the hospital. The hospital, however, blamed Davis, noting he was the only outsider with close contact to Theo. They argued he likely brought the virus in, pointing out that among the many infants in the neonatal care unit, only his son was infected. Their accusations intensified when they learned Davis was unvaccinated against COVID-19, condemning him for endangering his son and betraying the hospital's efforts to save him. The dispute escalated, though it was temporarily resolved through mediation, but the seeds of distrust had been sown in Davis's heart. Time passed quickly, and Theo reached 3 months old. For the treatment plan, and given the specific circumstances, Davis requested the hospital delay a scheduled surgery as Theo had just recovered from the COVID-19. Performing a major thoracic surgery at that time posed a significant risk to the child's health and the parent's emotional state. However, after evaluation, the hospital determined Theo could undergo the procedure. The lead surgeon insisted the issue of blood supply to the heart was critical, and delaying the surgery would be detrimental. To secure consent, the hospital sent a psychologist to work with Davis's wife, ultimately convincing her to agree. The couple relented, and the surgery proceeded as planned, with both parents hoping it would resolve Theo's heart issues. While the surgery was technically successful, Theo faced a more severe crisis due to a post-operative infection. He suffered cardiac arrest, nearly dying, and to control the infection, doctors administered heavy antibiotics for 6 weeks, further straining his heart and lungs. Ultimately, they had to insert an endotracheal tube. Witnessing his son, who had previously been able to breathe independently and stay alert, fall into a coma and rely on machines after the surgery, Davis's anger became uncontainable. He believed the hospital's excessive treatment was to blame and demanded a more conservative approach. To clarify, despite the hospital's warning not to share anything on social media, under threat of further restricting his visitation rights, Davis posted about the ordeal on Facebook. Over a month after the surgery, as a nurse prepared to administer antibiotics through Theo's 4, the boy had just calmed down after a bout of crying, finally soothed to sleep by his parents. Per protocol, the nurse needed to flush the 4 catheter before the injection, an action likely to wake Theo. Davis, standing nearby, asked if the injection could be delayed a few hours to let his son rest. What happened next depends on who you ask. The nurse's report claimed Davis became agitated, even trying to snatch the vial from her. Davis later told a reporter the nurse was the one who got angry, calling security to escort him and his wife out of the room. During their argument, Theo woke up crying intensely, which led to breathing difficulties and an irregular heartbeat, forcing doctors to call a code. As a result, the hospital issued a warning to the family, prohibiting them from interfering with Theo's treatment. They threatened to report the incident to the BC Ministry of Children and Family Development if such behavior continued. The hospital's stance left Davis both stunned and furious. He hired a lawyer to formally complain to the Ministry of Health, which launched an investigation. For the first time, Davis gained full access to Theo's medical records. He discovered that doctors had been administering lorazepam to Theo to calm him for tests and treatments. Lorazepam is effective for anxiety but can be addictive and cause respiratory issues. Due to Theo's COVID-19 infection, doctors had to stop the drug, and 3 days later, Theo suffered 12 seizures. At the time, doctors told Davis the seizures were due to meningitis caused by the virus, prescribing treatment for over 2 months without mentioning potential withdrawal side effects. Davis believed the doctor's fragmented approach, treating symptoms in isolation, turned his son into a guinea pig for experimentation. As mentioned earlier, Davis had served as a combat medic in the Canadian Army. While not a specialized doctor, he wasn't medically ignorant. After reviewing Theo's records, he researched thoroughly and consulted former military doctor colleagues. He found Theo lacked meningitis symptoms like fever or rash, leading him to demand the hospital stop all medications, including post-thoracic surgery antibiotics, until a confirmed positive test result. He even sent a liability waiver through his lawyer, stating doctors wouldn't be held responsible for complications during this period. But the hospital viewed this as a blatant provocation and a severe threat to Theo's life, formally reporting the matter to the MCFD. At this point, the relationship between the two parties completely broke down. Since Theo had worn an oxygen mask since birth, the straps had compressed his soft skull, causing severe cranial deformation. His pointed head resembled an alien from a sci-fi movie, altering his facial structure. Davis and his wife were deeply concerned, fearing that even if Theo recovered, he'd face lifelong stigma. They requested the mask be removed to allow his head to reshape while still malleable. But the hospital denied this request. Davis recalled a doctor arrogantly saying to prove Theo could breathe without it. Davis conducted an unauthorized experiment in February 2023. After bathing Theo, he didn't immediately reattach the oxygen mask, letting him breathe on his own for over 30 minutes under a nurse's supervision, recording the process as proof. In Davis's view, Theo was perfectly fine during those 30 minutes. But when Theo's doctor reviewed the video, they claimed the child showed signs of respiratory distress. They likened Davis's actions to pulling a fish out of water, a cruel act of endangerment, and warned him against further unauthorized experiments. Just 2 weeks later, a nurse reported that after bathing Theo, Davis hesitated for several minutes before reattaching the oxygen mask. This momentary delay led the BCMCFD to conclude the parents were endangering their child's life, stripping Davis of custody. He was restricted to supervised visits twice a week. Despite Davis's strong objections and legal appeals, he was fighting a losing battle. Threatened with the potential loss of custody over his other children, he signed a temporary custody agreement in April 2024, transferring guardianship of Theo to the hospital and MCFD. But less than 2 weeks later, Davis learned Theo was scheduled for another surgery, during which a permanent tracheostomy would be performed to prevent future infections from repeated intubations. Davis and his wife immediately objected, arguing that the surgery would permanently eliminate Theo's chance to win off the ventilator, severely impacting his quality of life. They filed an emergency injunction through their lawyer to halt the hospital. However, insisted the surgery was essential to save Theo's life and enable further treatments. Thus began a legal battle between the parents, the government, and the hospital over custody of the child. Though the case didn't go to a formal trial, the heated arguments during hearings were as intense as any courtroom showdown. The hospital argued that despite Theo's severe congenital defects, they could be corrected through surgery and persistent rehabilitation. He could live nearly as long as a typical person, attending school, marrying, and having children. But if the parents' conservative approach, no surgery, no ventilator, no drugs was followed, Theo would suffer chronic respiratory distress and oxygen deprivation, his heart unable to bear the strain as he grew, likely dying before adulthood. Canadian law prioritizes children's health above all. If parents refuse necessary medical care or obstruct hospital treatment plans, child protection agencies can revoke custody. They cited a 2013 case in Calgary, Alberta, where a mother, believing in natural remedies, refused to take her critically ill 7-year-old son to a doctor, treating him with honey, syrup and herbs at home. The boy died, and the mother was sentenced to 3 years in prison for child neglect. With such a precedent, the hospital had grounds to act preemptively to save Theo's life. However, Davis's lawyer countered that both parents were well educated, with Davis possessing some medical knowledge. They had initially cooperated fully with the hospital's treatments, sacrificing immensely. Their change in attitude stemmed from repeated treatments that not only failed to deliver expected results, but caused Theo significant physical suffering, leading them to question the doctor's protocols. When the parents raised such concerns, the hospital responded with arrogance, dismissing their requests without explaining the necessity of the upcoming surgery. This breakdown in communication was the root cause of the current situation. The lawyer urged the hospital and MCFD to restore custody to Davis and his wife, allowing future medical decisions to be made through thorough mutual understanding, all in the best interest of the child's health. In reality, after the first hearing, the judge leaned somewhat toward Davis and his wife, recognizing that their opposition to the hospital stemmed from love and an inability to watch their child suffer. Since both sides had good intentions, the judge relaxed their visitation restrictions and ordered the hospital to reassess the upcoming surgery for Theo. But just as things seemed to be turning in Davis's favor, an unexpected twist unfolded. In July 2023, shortly before the second hearing, another heated dispute erupted between Davis and the hospital. Since birth, Theo had been unable to eat like other children. So, the hospital used a drip to deliver nutrients directly into his stomach. But as Theo grew, feeding took up to 3 hours daily, not only prolonging the process, but also causing digestive side effects like bloating. The doctors proposed surgery to create an esophagus and intestinal cavity until Theo was old enough for esophageal reconstruction. Davis immediately opposed this decision. He argued that his son already had a tracheostomy hole in his throat. Adding another to his esophagus would mean more tubes in his tiny body. How could a child so reliant on machines ever live a normal life? At such a young age, Theo risked permanently losing the ability to swallow. Even if esophageal reconstruction succeeded later, it would be merely decorative. Learning from past clashes with the hospital, Davis vented his frustration on his personal Facebook page, stating he was considering turning off Theo's feeding machine during his visit on July 10. For an infant entirely dependent on the machine for nutrition, such an act would be tantamount to slowly taking the child's life. Consequently, someone reported the publicly accessible post to the Ministry of Children and Family Development, MCFD. This time, they reacted swiftly. For the child's safety, they immediately suspended Davis and his wife's visitation rights. Moreover, MCFD investigators discovered that Davis and his wife were members of a conservative religious sect. They adhered to a back-to-roots lifestyle, emulating Jesus' life from thousands of years ago, rejecting high-tech chemical products and food, daily life and medicine, including vaccines and antibiotics. This explained why, as mentioned earlier, even after discovering Theo's severe congenital defects during prenatal screenings, they chose to keep the baby. In their devout faith, abortion was a grave sin. Additionally, despite Theo's condition, Davis and his wife conceived again, giving birth to another daughter a year later. Including Theo, they had 5 children. As Davis wrote on Facebook, whether healthy or not, children were God's gift, and they couldn't reject their existence. According to the Vancouver Sun, Davis had been an atheist and a believer in modern medicine during his time as a combat medic. It was only after leaving the military and joining the sect that his views shifted. Later, with Theo's illness requiring the family to sell their farm and move to Surrey, Davis turned to prayer, hoping for his son's recovery, and actively evangelized in the community. But from the MCFD's perspective, Davis's approach was akin to waiting for Theo to die slowly. Thus, at the second hearing in late July 2024, Davis and his wife were permanently stripped of custody of Theo. This meant that even if Theo's health improved and he was discharged in the future, he would be placed with a foster family. Davis expressed outrage over the decision to a reporter, saying, "Reports indicate Davis hadn't given up on regaining custody of his son. He contacted a lawyer and was actively appealing. But given this abduction incident, his chances of a successful appeal seemed slim. I just want to see fairness and justice," Davis told a reporter in his final 2023 interview. Spring has come again, and Vancouver's cherry blossoms bloom year after year. On a street not far from the Children's Hospital, falling petals bear witness to each life's choices. Medicine can heal physical defects, but mending broken trust requires a compassion far more delicate than surgery. Story 4. A young woman once casually bit into a bright red lipstick as if it were a popsicle in front of the camera. A daring act that skyrocketed her to fame across social media. Now that same boldness has become the starting point for a tragedy no one could have foreseen. Guava Beauty, a 24-year-old influencer from Taiwan known for her bizarre cosmetics eating videos, was recently found dead under sudden and mysterious circumstances. The passing of this innocent-faced vlogger with her peculiar penchant for devouring makeup has left the online community in shock, raising haunting questions. Did her habit of eating cosmetics for views claim her life? Or is there a darker secret lurking behind this tragedy? Now, let's delve into the story at hand. The incident unfolded in late May 2025 in Taiwan, a modern island where the youth are deeply immersed in social media and cutting-edge live streaming trends. At the time, the mukbang craze, eating on camera while engaging with viewers, was sweeping across Asia, offering audiences a relaxing, almost voyeuristic feast for the eyes. But Guava Beauty took mukbang down a dangerous path instead of food. She chose cosmetics as her meal in her videos. With her charming looks, a pastel pink bedroom aesthetic, and an outlandish concept, the young blogger quickly amassed tens of thousands of followers on Instagram and Weibo. Her signature makeup mukbang trend, blending beauty routines with eating cosmetics, both captivated audience curiosity and sparked fierce debates about safety and ethics. Many viewers were drawn to Guava's audacity, but others voiced concerns over the toxic content, fearing it could inspire impressionable young people to blindly follow suit. This societal backdrop, a world where the thirst for online fame can push people to bizarre extremes, sets the stage for Guava Beauty's tragedy. On the late afternoon of May 24, 2025, a close friend of Guava Beauty stopped by her small Taipei apartment after several unanswered calls. As the door swung open, a chilling scene greeted her. Guava lay motionless on the bedroom floor, surrounded by scattered compacts, lipsticks, and makeup brushes. On her vanity, her vlogging camera still glowed faintly, its lens pointed at a small plate in the center. A broken red lipstick lay on it next to a silver fork smeared with crimson stains. The friend frantically called out Guava's name, but there was no response. Heart pounding, she knelt to check and found Guava's body cold, lifeless, without a trace of breath. "No way. Wake up, shoo. Shower," the friend cried, shaking her in panic. Trembling, she fumbled for her phone and dialed emergency services, sobbing as she told the operator that Guava Beauty seemed to have passed out for reasons unknown. When the ambulance screeched to a halt, the friend was still reeling. Just days earlier, she and Guava had been laughing together, brainstorming new video ideas. Yet now, the vibrant influencer lay still like a mannequin in the midst of her own cosmetics arena. Choking back tears, the friend recounted the events to the paramedics and police on the scene. Guava had no history of serious illness, nor had she complained about her health recently. Her sudden collapse at home left everyone bewildered. After a preliminary check, the emergency team confirmed that Guava Beauty's heart had stopped before she was found. Given the unusual nature of the case, local police were called in to investigate the scene that very night. At the scene, Guava Beauty's room showed no signs of a struggle or break-in. Every door and lock was intact, ruling out the possibility of an intruder. The victim's body lay on the floor, her head tilted against a pillow, still dressed in comfortable loungewear. Her face was pale, but there were no visible injuries, scratches, or signs of violence. As investigators surveyed the room, their attention was drawn to an odd detail. Countless makeup products were open and strewn about, mingled with eating utensils. On the vanity mirror's table, they noticed a jar of gel blush. Partially scooped out, next to a small fork, the kind used for desserts, coated in pink powder. The broken red lipstick on the plate with clear bite marks was immediately collected as evidence. These clues pointed directly to the shocking cosmetics eating videos that define the victim's online persona. One investigator muttered, "Did she actually eat this stuff?" as he gingerly lifted the broken lipstick with tweezers for crime scene photos. His colleagues quickly noted the victim was found collapsed in her room, surrounded by makeup products bearing signs of being bitten or sampled. The initial impression among authorities was that this death was far from ordinary. Guava Beauty was young, healthy, and yet had died abruptly in a setting filled with chemicals. Could this be poisoning from eating cosmetics? One investigator wondered aloud, his eyes fixed on the half-empty jar of gel blush. The team also seized the victim's phone and laptop to trace her final activities. On her phone, they uncovered a striking detail. Her Instagram bio had been updated on May 24 with an eerie message, "Goodbye world. Starting a new journey. All business collaborations paused." This sudden farewell-like status sent a jolt through the investigators. Did the victim know her end was near, or was this a cryptic final message she left behind? The team promptly recorded this detail and reached out to her family to verify who had edited her account bio on the day of the incident. The ill-fated victim, known by her real name, Guava Shower, but widely recognized as Guava Beauty, was a 24-year-old beauty blogger and freelance photo model in Taiwan. With delicate features, large, expressive eyes, a soft spoken voice, and a charming presentation style, Guava quickly captured the attention of the online beauty community around 2024. She often appeared on camera in pastel pink outfits set against a backdrop of a makeup table brimming with cosmetics, an image that earned her the affectionate nickname Lipstick Fairy among fans. Rather than producing conventional makeup tutorials, Guava Beauty carved out a unique niche, blending beauty with cuisine. She would test makeup products on her skin while simultaneously tasting them to create bizarre eye-catching content. In one clip, for instance, she casually bit into a vibrant red lipstick, chewing it like ice cream and smiling as she described, "It's crunchy like jelly, but the taste is a bit odd." In another, she stirred a face mask into bubble tea, and sipped it or tore pieces of a makeup remover pad, dipped them in sauce, and chewed them like food. These outlandish ideas rapidly amassed massive viewership, propelling Guava Beauty to social media stardom. Her Instagram account boasted over 12,000 followers, and she also garnered a significant fan base on Weibo, China's social media platform. Yet Guava Beauty's life wasn't as rosy as her video aesthetic suggested. Alongside the glow of online fame came its darker side. Guava faced a barrage of daily criticism and mockery. Many viewers accused her of promoting dangerous behavior by consuming harmful substances, while others derided her as having paw disorder characterized by eating non-food items. Far from staying silent, Guava confronted the backlash head-on. She publicly stated on social media that she always warned viewers not to eat cosmetics, emphasizing that her actions were purely for humorous video effects. "I've made it crystal clear. Don't eat this. It's just for show. People need to be sensible enough to understand that I'm only responsible for the absurdities," she wrote, revealing her exhaustion with the relentless attacks while asserting her awareness of Safety boundaries. Her friends later confirmed that Guava was meticulous and responsible about her content creation. Still, the weight of public scrutiny cast a shadow over the 24-year-old's life. Off camera, Guava grew increasingly private, sharing little with anyone beyond a small circle of close friends and family. She kept her personal life under wraps and her real identity was never disclosed in the media. To the world, she was the vibrant Guava beauty, tirelessly crafting quirky content despite the controversies. Her tragic end came just as her online career seemed poised for greater heights, leaving behind a wave of regret for a life cut short in its prime. Upon taking up the case, Taiwan police launched a thorough investigation to uncover the cause of Guava Butte's sudden and puzzling death. Initial observations at the scene leaned toward the possibility of poisoning from cosmetic chemicals, given the clear evidence half-eaten makeup products scattered around the victim. However, this wasn't the only theory. Faced with the abrupt passing of a young, healthy woman, investigators had to consider every scenario, from an accident or medical condition to suicide or even homicide. They promptly collected all relevant evidence from the scene, including the broken lipstick, the remaining gel blush in its jar, the cosmetic stained fork, and the victim's personal items, water glass, any pill bottles, etc. Guava's body was sent to the coroner for an autopsy with blood and stomach contents sampled for toxicology tests. Another team reviewed the building's security footage and the list of visitors to her apartment in the days prior, searching for any suspicious activity. Simultaneously, police interviewed key witnesses, the friend who found her body, her family, and her boyfriend. Through their statements, a timeline of events began to take shape. In April 2025, Guava Beauty was still deeply engaged in her content creation career. On April 23, she posted a new Instagram video reviewing a gel blush. For dramatic effect, she applied the pink gel to her cheeks, then boldly declared, "If you dare to recommend it, I dare to eat it." On camera, she speared a piece of the gel blush with a fork, chewed it with a satisfying crunch, and grimaced, exclaiming, "Sorry, but this tastes awful." The video ended with her laughing, sticking out her tongue to signal she wouldn't swallow it. The clip racked up tens of thousands of views and thousands of polarized comments. Some fans adored her playful audacity, but others unleashed a fresh wave of criticism. "Please stop. These are chemicals, not food. If someone copies you and gets hurt, will you take responsibility?" One user commented harshly. Guava tried to quell the controversy by pinning a comment, clarifying that she never swallowed the cosmetics, that it was all for visual effect, and urging viewers not to try this at home. Yet, the debate only intensified. The hashtag Ashar and my fam eating cosmetics became a trending topic on Weibo, with health bloggers condemning the trend and some even reporting Guava's videos to platforms for dangerous content. Guava Beauty found herself at the center of a social media storm. In early May 2025, under mounting pressure, Guava abruptly vanished from social media. She stopped posting videos or updates, leaving fans bewildered and speculating. Some assumed she was lying low to escape the controversy. Others worried she was ill. In truth, Guava Beauty had been quietly hospitalized. According to her boyfriend, around May 5, she developed a persistent high fever, fatigue and body aches. Her family took her to the hospital where doctors diagnosed mild myocarditis, likely viral, requiring close monitoring. Guava spent over 2 weeks in the hospital undergoing multiple tests due to occasional chest pain and shortness of breath, alarming symptoms for someone so young. She wore a heart monitor continuously. Despite her weakened state, Guava remained upbeat, even joking with nurses that she'd make a video about her hospital stay for everyone once discharged. Few knew about her hospitalization, as she asked her family to keep it private to avoid further online gossip. On May 20, 2025, Guava's condition took a sudden turn for the worse. That night, she suffered severe chest pain and a dangerous drop in blood pressure. Doctors fought to stabilize her throughout the night, administering oxygen and heart-supporting drugs. Guava slipped into critical condition, with her family keeping vigil by her bedside, fearing the worst. In a semi-conscious moment, she clutched her mother's hand, tears streaming down, whispering, "I'm sorry for worrying everyone." Deep down, the young woman seemed burdened by guilt. Perhaps for risking her health or causing her family distress amid the public controversies. Her mother, choking back tears, reassured her. "You'll be okay. Stay strong, sweetheart." Guava nodded weakly, fighting to survive the crisis. On the afternoon of May 24, 2025, Guava Butte's heart stopped. Despite exhaustive efforts, doctors pronounced her dead around 3 hours Zumro. The hospital room fell into a stunned silence. Her mother collapsed in tears beside her daughter. Her father stood frozen, and her boyfriend punched the wall, repeating, "No, this can't be." The loss was overwhelming. The family chose to bring Guava's body back to her small apartment rather than leaving it in the hospital, wanting her to rest in a familiar place one last time. Wrapped in a blanket, her body was gently placed on her bed. Her loved ones dressed her in clean clothes and applied light makeup to give her a peaceful sleeping appearance. Later that evening, after arrangements were made, her close friend was called to say a final goodbye and assist with preparations. It was this friend who, upon entering the room, witnessed the heartbreaking scene and frantically called emergency services. Unaware that Guava had already passed hours earlier in the hospital. This misunderstanding initially led police to believe Guava died alone at home. But in reality, she had taken her last breath, surrounded by family at the hospital. Still, with the medical cause of death unclear, police proceeded with the investigation as outlined earlier. Late on May 24 into the early hours of May 25, Guava's family drafted and posted an obituary on her social media accounts. Around midnight, her Instagram manager, her close friend, updated her bio with a farewell message and shared a post announcing the tragic news. Written in Chinese, it translates to, "We are heartbroken to share that Guava Beauty, our precious gem in the world of makeup mukbang, left this world on May 24, 2025. She has set down her brush and soared away, starting a new channel in heaven." The post also thanked her audience. "Thank you to everyone who loved, commented, and laughed with her. Guava truly cherished it all." The family stated they would keep her Instagram account active as a memorial, adding, "Who knows? Maybe next time we meet, she'll unveil a makeup line just for angels." The post sent shockwaves through the online community. Many refused to believe it, as the 24-year-old had been live streaming with her signature smile just days before. Initial crime scene analysis revealed no signs of a struggle or external force, ruling out direct homicide. Security footage showed no strangers entering her apartment around May 24, further supporting the view that this wasn't a typical murder case. The investigation thus shifted to internal causes. Had Guava harmed herself? Was an acute medical condition to blame? Or could cosmetic poisoning truly be the culprit? To find answers, police and experts meticulously pursued every lead. The main hypotheses and how investigators approached them are outlined below. A.K. Parbisto C. Swadlam Dismalanocord poisoning from consuming cosmetics. This was the leading hypothesis initially. The crime scene suggested the victim had indeed been eating lipstick and blush just before losing consciousness. Cosmetics often contain chemicals, lead, mercury, parabens, preservatives that can cause severe harm if ingested. Forensic experts tested Guava's blood and stomach contents for traces of toxic chemicals or heavy metals from the makeup. Surprisingly, the results showed no lethal levels of toxins. A doctor involved in the examination stated there was no evidence of acute cosmetic poisoning. It seems she didn't swallow a significant amount of any chemical before her death. In fact, many of Guava's videos revealed she typically spat out the cosmetics after biting them, not fully ingesting them as some assumed. Her close friend testified that Guava was well aware of the dangers, only tasting for the camera before quickly spitting out and thoroughly rinsing her mouth after each take. Consequently, the cosmetic poisoning theory was gradually ruled out, with doctors stating they had clearly eliminated any link to so-called cosmetic food suicide due to pressure. Initially, police found no suicide note or signs of preparation for ending her life, such as purchasing poisons or settling affairs. However, they paid close attention to Instagram bio update "Goodbye World." The message appeared at first glance like a farewell, possibly posted by Guava with negative intent. A motive for such a drastic act wasn't baseless. Guava Beauty faced immense pressure from public scrutiny. She had confided in her boyfriend about experiencing mild depression and insomnia due to vicious online attacks on Chinese social media after her death. Rumors circulated that Guava couldn't handle cyberbullying and chose to end her life. Police reviewed her message history and phone logs to check for any expressions of intent to die or searches related to suicide methods. The findings showed no clear evidence, no desperate messages, no online searches about self-harm, and no signs she had arranged personal matters, finances, messages to loved ones, as is common in suicide cases. Moreover, her family confirmed that Guava had recently signed a new collaboration deal with a cosmetics brand and had many unfinished plans, making it unlikely she would give up at this point. Regarding the Goodbye World bio, the family clarified that a relative or friend likely posted it after her death as a metaphorical announcement. This dispelled suspicions that Guava wrote a farewell note herself. Thus, the suicide hypothesis lost traction, though it wasn't entirely ruled out. Homicide by poisoning. Police also considered the possibility that someone exploited Guava's cosmetic eating habit to poison her covertly. For instance, a perpetrator could have laced a lipstick or gel blush with poison and sent it as a promotional gift, leading to her death when she sampled it on camera. This conspiratorial theory required Investigation to avoid overlooking a crime. The team traced the origins of the cosmetics at the scene. Guava's friend provided a list of brands she typically used, mostly purchased by herself or sent by reputable companies. With oversight with no unfamiliar items recently acquired. Further checks confirmed that all lipsticks and compacts at the scene were from trusted brands. Lab analysis of the remaining gel blush and broken lipstick found no foreign toxins mixed in beyond the standard chemical components of cosmetics. Additionally, Guava's recent contacts were limited. She lived with a cousin who was away that day. Her friend who discovered the scene had a solid alibi, being with her husband and children. And her boyfriend, who was elsewhere on May 24, sent her a final message on the evening of May 23, indicating her mood was normal. No significant conflicts or grudges were noted in her relationships. With this evidence, police concluded there were no signs of criminal activity, almost certainly no killer behind Guava's death. Sudden death due to medical or natural causes. With other theories faltering, this became the most plausible explanation. Despite her youth, Guava Beauty may have had an underlying health condition or disorder leading to sudden death. Forensic pathologists closely examined her heart, brain, and internal organs. Preliminary findings revealed mild myocarditis, possibly viral, which can cause heart rhythm disturbances and sudden death, especially under stress. Her lungs showed slight edema, but no clear brain damage was found. Tissue samples were sent for microscopic analysis to detect signs of heart attack or brain hemorrhage, though final results were pending at the time of reporting. Doctors suspected an acute arrhythmia or heart attack as the cause of death. A theory echoed by online speculation that Guava suffered a cardiac event. Another possibility was a severe allergic reaction, anaphylaxis to a cosmetic ingredient causing rapid respiratory failure. However, no typical signs of anaphylaxis such as rashes or throat swelling were observed. Thus, the precise cause remained elusive, likely tied to microscopic or biochemical factors requiring further analysis. Throughout the multi-day investigation, detectives and experts painstakingly pieced together the truth. They meticulously cross-referenced witness statements with scientific evidence, gradually eliminating implausible theories. At times, the case seemed at a standstill, especially when toxicology tests returned negative for cosmetics, indicating the case wasn't as straightforward as initially thought. But a breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the victim's family. On May 25, a day after Guava's death, her family posted a heartfelt public statement on her social media. "We are devastated to share that our little girl, who bravely brought joy through her cosmetic mukbang videos, Guava Beauty, has set down her makeup brush and embarked on a new journey in heaven on May 24, 2025. The statement praised her for always working diligently, staying dedicated, and shining brightly, enduring every hardship until the very end. The phrase "enduring every hardship until the very end" sparked speculation that Guava had been battling a serious illness, but fought on true to her resilient spirit. Indeed, friends and family revealed that about a month before her death, Guava Beauty had shown signs of declining health. She abruptly stopped posting videos for weeks. Her last Instagram post was on April 23, a stark contrast to her regular updates. In early May, she was hospitalized for a sudden illness. Sources mentioned high fever and chest pain, requiring close monitoring. She fought bravely and tirelessly during treatment, but her condition deteriorated rapidly, overwhelming both her family and doctors. On the fateful day of May 24, Guava Shower took her final breath in the hospital, surrounded by the anguished helplessness of her loved ones. The fact that she was found at home stemmed from her family's decision to bring her body back before notifying friends and the public. This explained the lack of struggle at the scene. Guava likely didn't die there, but was brought to her apartment after passing in the hospital. While police hadn't publicly confirmed this detail, it aligned with the family's request to keep the exact cause private and avoid excessive speculation. This revelation strengthened the sudden illness theory. Ultimately, after reviewing all evidence, police concluded there was no criminal element attributing her death to a sudden severe illness that tragically struck. Throughout the quest for truth, Wet Tail haunted investigators the lifeless cosmetics scattered at the scene. From the half-eaten lipstick to the Margel blush, they stood as a metaphor for the fragile line between entertainment and danger that Guava Beauty crossed. Though science proved they didn't directly cause her death, their presence at the crime scene carried a bitter symbolism. The case closed with authorities releasing Guava Beauty's body to her family for final arrangements. No handcuffs were clicked. No suspects arrested, for the culprit was likely not human. Instead, the case left a stinging warning about the invisible perils lurking behind the allure of social media fame. In this tragedy, the police found no flesh and blood culprit. Yet, metaphorically speaking, the culprit was whatever stole Guava Beauty's life, a cause still shrouded in mystery. Initially, many believed the perpetrator was her habit of consuming cosmetics, or more specifically toxins accumulated from the makeup she ingested. Cosmetics, after all, contain harmful chemicals when consumed. Lead and mercury can damage the brain and nervous system. Microplastics and synthetic dyes may build up, potentially causing cancer. Parabens and formaldehyde preservatives can impair liver and kidney function. This presumed culprit seemed plausible. So much so that after Guava's death, social media erupted with accusations that the lipsticks and powders she consumed were what killed her. However, the investigation and medical tests exonerated the cosmetics. There was no evidence of acute poisoning. Her close friend emphasized that Guava always publicly warned viewers that cosmetics aren't food and was meticulous about her health, meaning she understood the dangers and had no intention of poisoning herself. Thus, the first suspected culprit was cleared from the investigation. So, who or what was the true culprit? The most logical explanation to date is that Guava Beauty succumbed to a sudden severe illness. The invisible killer that claimed her life. The family statement referred to sudden ailments as the cause of her death. Though they shared no specifics, the phrase suggests a serious unexpected medical issue such as cardiac arrest or a stroke. Indeed, a heart attack or acute arrhythmia can claim a young person's life without warning. Particularly under stress, and Guava faced immense mental strain from creating controversial content. A silent killer in its own right. Some argued that cyberbullying and the pressure to chase views eroded her mental and physical health, pushing her to the brink. The venomous comments online are as deadly as poison, a family friend said in anguish. Every ja and attack Guava endured may have accumulated into psychological scars, quietly undermining her will and possibly her cardiovascular health. Medical research shows that severe stress can trigger broken heart syndrome, a stress-induced cardiac event. Could the real culprit lie not in a tangible substance, but in the dark side of social media, a toxic force that snuffs out youthful dreams? Of course. Until a final medical conclusion is reached, all theories remain speculative. The direct cause of Guava Butte's heart-stopping may forever remain a mystery if her family chooses to keep it private. But looking at the bigger picture, two symbolic culprits emerged. The lipsticks and powders representing reckless risk-taking and the pressure of virtual fame, embodying the cruel underbelly of influencer life. Whether invisible or tangible, both converged to rob a vibrant, promising young woman of her life. Painfully, she herself unwittingly paved the way for these culprits through actions that traded health for fleeting fame. On May 25 to 26, 2025, news of her death spread like wildfire across Taiwan, mainland China, Vietnam, the US, and beyond. The hashtag Guava Beauty dies soared to the top of search trends. Chinese media citing her family's account reported that the blogger passed away suddenly at 24. The online community reeled with millions sending condolences to her family. I can't believe it, but I'm sure Guava Beauty will be the most beautiful mukbang angel in heaven. One netizen wrote, choked with emotion. Yet, alongside the grief, rumors about her cause of death proliferated on Weibo. Many insisted it must be poisoning from eating cosmetics, turning Guava into a cautionary tale against chasing views. Some extreme voices even blamed her family. Why didn't they stop her from making such dangerous content, leading to this heartbreaking outcome? Conversely, others suspected darker secrets. Someone claiming to know her family spread rumors of suicide, fueling further confusion. Amid their raw grief, Guava's family and friends faced renewed public pressure. They chose to withhold details of her illness, both due to the lack of a final medical conclusion and to protect her privacy. A planned public memorial was cancelled at the last minute to avoid intrusive curiosity. Her close friend, also the admin of Guava's page, spoke out in the comments of the obituary post, urging people to please stop prying into details and to let Guava and her family have a peaceful farewell. She also warned against imposters claiming insider knowledge for clout, who might exploit public curiosity for scams. Only the family and a few close friends know the full story. Please respect their privacy and be patient, she pleaded desperately, hoping to quell malicious speculation. In early June 2025, major international outlets began covering Guava Butte's passing, framing it as a wake-up call about dangerous online video trends. People magazine quoted her friend, confirming that doctors ruled out cosmetics as the cause of death and condemning the malicious attacks, fabrications, and mockery that deeply hurt her loved ones. Other outlets like Insider and Hindustan Times recounted the story, emphasizing that she battled a sudden illness and passed abruptly. Health and psychology experts interviewed on the topic warned that consuming cosmetics is highly dangerous, even if not immediately lethal, as it can cause long-term harm. They also raised concerns about the mental toll on content creators like Guava. In an era where views dictate everything, young people are pushing themselves into reckless challenges for fame. Behind the virtual glamour lies real stress, even depression. Guava Butte's case, a beautiful, talented young woman lost so tragically was cited as a textbook tragedy exposing the extreme consequences of the biasing culture. When people risk their lives for fleeting online attention, the cost may be their health or life itself. Reflecting on the entire saga, Guava Beauty's story is rife with painful ironies. The young woman launched her career, aiming to blend her passions for beauty and cuisine, bringing joy to others. But the bolder her ideas, the harsher the backlash she faced. Those invisible pressures may have felt her both literally and figuratively. When Guava closed her eyes for the last time, she likely never imagined becoming the central figure in a societal cautionary tale. Her death rang a warning bell, urging reflection in the race for views. Don't blindly trade life and self-worth. No legal trial was held for Guava Beauty's case as no criminal act or perpetrator was identified. Instead, a trial unfolded on social media where the public play judge and Guava's reputation stood in the dock. Opinion split sharply with heated debates raging online. Though no courtroom verdict was issued, the public effectively passed judgment by drawing lessons from the tragedy. Most agreed that Guava Beauty's case serves as a stark warning, prompting calls for platforms and regulators to intervene. Indeed, within days, health experts and activists in Taiwan petitioned authorities to tighten oversight of hazardous online content. They proposed penalties or removal for creators promoting dangerous challenges like eating cosmetics, detergent, or self-harm to prevent further tragedies. This can be seen as a societal verdict on the trend Guava pioneered, condemned, and targeted for prevention to spare future victims. And so today's video comes to a close. Ultimately, Guava Beauty's passing is a tragedy of our digital age, a tragedy of the hunger for fame in the online era. It reminds us that every view and follower carries responsibility for both creators and consumers. When the line between entertainment and danger blurs, the consequences are unpredictable. We hope Guava's loss, so young, so passionate about her craft, won't be in vain, but will serve as a wake-up call for society and the online community to reflect, value health and life, treat others with humanity in the virtual space, and let future Guava Beauty shine in a safe, healthy environment. Only then can we transform such heartbreaking tragedies into catalysts for positive change, ensuring no one else pays the ultimate price for fleeting digital glory. Story 5. They say a picture-perfect family can hide the darkest secrets. And for the Foster family, that saying would become a chilling reality. Around 4 o'clock in the morning on August 26, 2008, Shropshire's Central Fire Control received an emergency call reporting a fire at the Grand Abaston mansion. When firefighters arrived, they were blocked by a large horse trailer parked at the entrance, and that delay cost precious time. By the time they made it inside, the entire house had been swallowed by flames. Tragically, so had the people who lived there: Christopher Foster, his wife Jill, and their teenage daughter, Kirsty. As investigators began digging into the case, they discovered that the horse trailer had been deliberately placed to keep emergency services out. This was no accident. Something far more sinister had unfolded behind the mansion's locked gates. But who would do such a thing to a family everyone believed was so perfect? Shockingly, the answer pointed straight to the man who built the dream life himself, Christopher Foster. The same man who worked his way to millionaire status. Who created the illusion of success, comfort, and control. And yet, behind that flawless image was a man hiding. Pressure, fear, and darkness no one saw coming. From the beginning, Christopher seemed destined to achieve big things. His mother, Enid, always described him as a natural go-getter, someone who was always chasing opportunities, even as a child. He wasn't the only one in the family with big dreams. He and his younger brother, Andrew, both shared a desire to become successful businessmen, following in the footsteps of their late father, who had been a sales director. But while their ambitions aligned, their personalities clashed. Chris was confident and commanding, someone who always took center stage. Andrew, on the other hand, was quieter, more reserved, often left in his brother's shadow. Their relationship had always been strained. Andrew would later reveal how difficult it was growing up beside someone who always seemed to outshine him. And yet, despite their differences, both brothers remained close to their mother. Enid adored them both, though it was no secret she had a special soft spot for Chris. In 1987, Chris married Jill, a gentle and supportive woman who later became a full-time housewife. 6 years later, in 1993, they had their only child, Kirsty. She grew up surrounded by comfort, wealth, and animals, especially horses. Kirsty was known to be kind and soft-spoken, and she had a passion for riding. Her world seemed as beautiful and untouchable as the one her parents had carefully built. But Christopher's journey to wealth wasn't always glamorous. In the late 1980s, he worked humble jobs, selling mattresses and using pizza boxes as makeshift insulation. Life was ordinary until one tragic news report caught his attention and changed everything. On July 6, 1988, the Piper Alpha oil rig exploded in the North Sea. The blaze lasted for days, killing 167 workers. It was one of the worst offshore disasters in history. However, Chris didn't just see a tragedy. He saw a business opportunity. He realized there was a massive gap in the market for fire-resistant insulation materials for oil and gas rigs. Acting quickly, he began developing a product that could withstand extreme heat. He called it Alva Shield. But in order to prove it worked, he had to take a huge risk. He mortgaged his home for $5,000 to fund a live demonstration. The risk paid off. Alva Shield outperformed every competitor, surviving fire tests while others burned to ash. It even earned a rare A1 fire safety rating. Suddenly, Chris was in demand. Oil companies placed orders and his small business exploded in success. Practically overnight, Christopher Foster went from selling pizza box insulation to becoming a self-made millionaire. And with success came the spending. That same year, after a casual shopping trip, Jill came across a house in a local magazine that caught her eye. It wasn't just any home. It was a Baston house, an elegant 16-acre estate in the peaceful village of Maybrook, Shropshire. Complete with a private lake, horse paddocks, and lush greenery. It looked like something out of a storybook. Now, despite the staggering asking price of around $1.5 million, the mansion was far from perfect. It still required significant renovations and updates, but Jill Foster was completely smitten. The grand 16-acre estate offered privacy, elegance, and space for the luxurious lifestyle she and Chris were building. The moment Jill laid eyes on the property in the Shropshire Life magazine, she was enchanted. By the next morning, Chris didn't hesitate. He made an offer. The Fosters sold their current home, packed up their lives, and relocated to what would become their ultimate dream estate. As soon as they moved in, Chris began spending lavishly. He poured an additional £50,000 into landscaping and installing a brand new swimming pool to match the grandeur of their new home. But the spending didn't stop there. Chris indulged in an extravagant lifestyle that many could only imagine. He bought 2 sleek Porsches, one for himself and one for Jill, a stylish James Bond-like Aston Martin, multiple Range Rovers, a tractor for the estate, and various other high-end vehicles that lined their driveway like trophies. Their daughter Kirsty was sent to an elite private boarding school where she was given every possible advantage. Chris also bought her several horses to support her love for riding. Kirsty adored animals and spent her weekends riding and entering competitions. Friends described her as gentle, soft-spoken, and kind, a contrast to the luxury that surrounded her. Alongside her horses, the family also owned 4 dogs and even a collection of doves, adding to the estate's almost fairy tale appearance. To elevate their lifestyle even further, the Fosters hired a full-time housekeeper and a personal assistant. Inside the mansion, every room glistened with opulence, decorated with over $200,000 worth of antique furnishings, hand-picked to match the couple's expensive taste. Chris's obsession with wealth and image extended beyond furniture and cars. However, his most costly passion was shooting. He owned an impressive collection of high-end firearms, some valued between $12,000 and $12,500. Nearly £20,000 at the time. He regularly hosted weekend-long clay pigeon shooting parties on the estate, some of which racked up bills of up to £8,000. But Chris's behavior wasn't just excessive, it was often unsettling. He had a habit of leaving his loaded guns around the house carelessly. When the family's doves left droppings on his vehicles, he would simply shoot them on sight, much to Jill's horror. In one particularly disturbing moment, Kirsty's black Labrador chased after a flock of sheep and couldn't be controlled. Chris took the dog for a walk down a country lane and shot it in the head. Though Chris appeared to be a thriving entrepreneur, those close to him noticed he lacked long-term vision. He was described as impulsive, obsessed with instant gratification, and quick to cut ties with anyone who disappointed or challenged him. He wasn't driven by purpose. He was driven by appearances. Social status meant everything to Chris. Over time, both he and Jill began climbing into higher and higher social circles. Chris became fixated on leaving his Wolverhampton roots behind, as though his past no longer fit into the glossy life he had curated. Jill too embraced their new life with ease. She spent her days going on shopping sprees, booking nail and hair appointments, and indulging in beauty treatments like Botox and manicures. The couple, along with their daughter and close friends, often went on luxurious holidays, staying in 5-star hotels, dining at the most expensive restaurants, and spending up to £20,000 per trip. These were not rare occasions. They were the norm. Chris never hesitated to throw money at pleasure. But behind the glamour, a darker truth was festering. Unbeknownst to most of those around him, Chris was in deep financial trouble. His outwardly perfect life was being funded by unsustainable borrowing, secret deals, and silent desperation. Back in 2003, Chris had signed an exclusive contract with a company called DRC, giving them sole rights to manufacture and sell the oil rig sealant he had invented, Alva Shield. At first, this deal looked like a smart move. By 2004, his net worth had soared to over £10 million. But everything unraveled quickly. In 2005, just 1 year later, Chris found himself drowning in debt over $2.8 million. Rather than scale back or cut his losses, he did the opposite. Addicted to his lifestyle, he tried to dig his way out by making riskier financial moves. Despite his exclusive agreement with DRC, he secretly signed a second deal with another company for the sale of his product. When DRC found out, they sued him for breach of contract. The court ruled against him, stripping him of his patent. DRC then turned Alva Shield into a global success without him. Chris, now facing financial ruin, watched as his company went into liquidation in 2007. £3 million worth of his assets were frozen. His salary stopped. His financial empire had collapsed. But instead of changing course, Chris continued spending like nothing had happened. At the same time, he found himself in a bitter dispute with his accountant, who reported him to the Inland Revenue for tax evasion. Chris had failed to pay VAT, national insurance, and a slew of other taxes. In a last-ditch effort to stay afloat, he borrowed heavily from banks, remortgaged the Abaston mansion not once, but 3 times, and overdrew more than 20 separate bank accounts. Still, he kept the mask on. Even as the walls closed in, Chris continued to host shooting events, drive his luxury cars, and maintain appearances. Those who knew Jill were unsure if she truly understood how dire their situation was. Perhaps Chris had shielded her from the worst of it, or maybe she just didn't want to believe it. Either way, she never seemed to cut back on spending, and she never confided in friends about any financial worries. On the outside, the Fosters looked just as polished and powerful as ever. And as the walls of his carefully built world began to close in, Christopher Foster found himself caught in a storm of financial ruin, personal despair, and unbearable pressure. The once self-made millionaire, who had built a life of luxury from nothing but ambition and risk, was now staring down a future where all of it could be stripped away. The illusion of control that he had fought so hard to maintain was slipping, and Chris knew it. Additionally, conversations with close friends revealed glimpses of the turmoil brewing inside him. When the subject of property came up, Chris made a chilling offhand remark. He said he would never give up a Baston house unless it was in a body bag. While others might have dismissed it as a dramatic joke, the tone in his voice was far too serious to ignore. He also told those close to him that he couldn't bear the thought of watching his family suffer. To see Jill and Kirsty stripped of the comfort, status, and lifestyle they had grown so used to. He made it clear if it came down to losing them or losing everything else, he would rather not be around to witness it at all. In his own twisted way, he believed that taking control of the ending would be better than watching the downfall unfold piece by piece. Behind the scenes, Chris had started seeking professional help. The stress had become too much to hide. On multiple occasions, he visited his doctor and admitted that he was struggling with depression. He even confided that he was having self-harm thoughts. Dark, heavy emotions that refused to be shaken off. He was prescribed antidepressants, but tragically, his pleas weren't taken as seriously as they should have been. His downward spiral continued unchecked, wrapped in silence, pride, and shame. Then came the moment that would push him over the edge. In the week leading up to the August bank holiday of 2008, a letter arrived, quiet, official, and devastating. It was from Birmingham and Five Counties Finance, the financial company that had been managing the legal seizure of assets due to Chris's mountain of unpaid debts. The letter had been posted right on the front gate of the Ospost estate in plain view. It stated that representatives would be returning the following Tuesday to reclaim the house and everything in it. This news hit like a death sentence. The housekeeper recalled showing Chris the letter. He looked at it confused, as if trying to process what it meant, but said nothing. His silence was telling. This wasn't just a financial setback. It was confirmation that the fantasy was finally collapsing, and it was no longer something he could outrun or cover up. The life he had crafted down to the last antique vase and polished sports car was going to be taken away publicly. For a man like Christopher Foster, who had spent his entire adult life obsessed with image, status, and material success, the idea of losing everything and having others see him lose it was unbearable. His reputation, his pride, and the illusion of power he projected were all tied to this life. Without it, who was he? More importantly, what would happen to his wife and daughter? On the morning of August 21, 2008, a close friend reached out to Christopher Foster via text. Sensing that something might be off, they asked the kind of casual question friends often ask without expecting a heavy answer. "How are you doing?" Chris replied with just 6 words, but those 6 words said everything. "Not good. Things are coming to a head for me soon." It was cryptic, dark, and carried a quiet sense of finality. But the friend had no idea what was truly brewing beneath the surface. They didn't know that Chris was standing at the edge of a terrifying decision and that this would be the last time they'd hear even a hint of what was coming. Just 4 days later, on August 25, the Foster family received an invitation to a seemingly harmless event, a barbecue and clay pigeon shooting gathering hosted by friends. Nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. Chris, his 49-year-old wife Jill, and their 15-year-old daughter Kirsty accepted the invitation and attended as if everything in their lives was perfectly fine. The 3 of them showed up smiling, laughing, and enjoying themselves with no visible signs of worry. Chris, in particular, appeared calm and cheerful, his usual charming self. No one suspected a thing. Witnesses later said he was his usual Chris, chatting, joking, and sipping drinks like nothing was wrong. There's even a photo from that event captured just hours before the horror that shows the family posing together radiating warmth and joy. But while the image painted a scene of togetherness and peace, behind Chris's smile was something far darker, something deeply broken. The truth was he had already made a decision. He just hadn't told anyone. In the days leading up to that fateful evening, Chris had been quietly preparing. He had spent hours online, reading self-harm websites, scouring them for methods and information. He had revisited old photo albums poring over family memories, holidays, birthdays, laughter frozen in time. Those photos weren't just nostalgia. They were his private farewell. A final glance at the life he had built and the people he believed he had failed. In his mind, he wasn't just protecting them. He was preparing to erase them from a future he no longer believed they could survive. After a few hours at the barbecue, Chris turned to Jill and said he was ready to leave. He had had enough of the party. Jill initially wanted to stay a little longer, but eventually agreed. At exactly 8:44 in the evening, the family returned home, captured clearly on their own CCTV cameras. That moment, frozen and grainy footage, marked the last time the Foster family would ever be seen together. Later that night, Jill went up to bed around 11:30. Chris, composed and eerily calm, went to check on Kirsty, who was still awake. Texting a friend. At midnight, he disconnected the internet, forcing Kirsty to end her conversation and go to sleep. The house, grand and quiet, fell into darkness. But Chris stayed awake. The plan was already in motion. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Chris picked up one of his firearms, a silenced gun, and walked quietly into the bedroom where his wife was sleeping peacefully. Without hesitation or remorse, he shot her once in the back of the head. She never stirred. She never had a chance to wake up. From there, he moved to his daughter's bedroom. Kirsty was already asleep. Her fate was just as swift and silent. One shot to the head. 2 lives gone in seconds. But it didn't end there. With chilling precision, Chris took one of his shotguns and went outside. His next victims were the family's dogs, for beloved companions who had lived alongside the family on the estate. One by one, he approached the kennels and shot each dog in the head. Then he walked to the barn where the horses, Kirsty's prized, cherished animals, were kept. Horses she rode, trained, and loved. He shot them, too. Every single one. Afterward, he set the barn ablaze with the animals still inside. Surveillance footage would later show him moving through the darkness like a man possessed. Robotic, mechanical, empty. There was no hesitation, no visible emotion, just silence and fire. Knowing that the fire department would respond quickly, Chris had one more act of sabotage. He got into a large horse trailer, drove it to the front entrance of the estate and parked it directly in the path of emergency access. To ensure no one could move it, he pulled out his gun and shot the tires, deliberately, flattening them. He wanted to slow them down. He wanted to make sure the fire had enough time to do what he needed it to do, destroy everything. In the final stage of his deadly plan, Christopher Foster became disturbingly methodical. Armed with his knowledge of fire behavior and destruction, he took calculated steps to ensure total annihilation. He strategically connected hose pipes to his domestic oil tank and began pumping approximately 200 L of fuel into the cellar of the Abaston house. This was no impulsive act. It was a firebomb in the making. Chris knew exactly what he was doing, and more chillingly why. His mindset was clear. If he could no longer keep his wealth and lifestyle, then no one else should have it either. Not the creditors, not the banks, not even the memories. After soaking the cellar and parts of the house with oil, he extended the destruction to the very symbols of his wealth, his luxury cars and prized possessions, dousing them in flammable liquid. Then he struck the match. Within moments, flames roared through the estate like a monster unleashed. The fire tore through walls, devoured ceilings, and spread with terrifying speed. Still armed with the rifle, Chris returned to the bedroom where Jill's lifeless body lay. And in a final eerie act of twisted devotion, he lay beside her. As the fire closed in, Chris wrapped his arms around his deceased wife. Some believe he may have intended to burn alive as a form of punishment or maybe as a final gesture of ownership. One last display of control. Christopher's errant brother, Andrew Foster, later speculated that Chris had no intention of surviving, and he was right. Autopsy results showed that Chris died from smoke inhalation. There were no gunshot wounds, no evidence of struggle, just Chris, Jill, and the inferno that consumed everything they once were. At exactly 4:11 in the morning, the family's home security system stopped recording. That was when a neighbor, awakened by the eerie glow in the sky and the crackling roar of fire, called emergency services. Firefighters responded quickly, but their path was blocked. The same horse trailer Chris had used to obstruct the entrance now stood in their way with its tires shot out. By the time they forced their way through, it was too late. The fire had already taken over, raging too fiercely to be contained. As firefighters battled the blaze, horrified neighbors stood by helplessly. Many feared the worst, whispering about the Fosters who were nowhere to be found. The next day, newspapers and news stations issued desperate appeals for the family's whereabouts. Some speculated they had been abducted. Others held out hope that they had escaped and were hiding. At that point, the bodies hadn't been recovered. The truth had not yet surfaced. For 3 full days, emergency crews worked to control the fire and allow investigators to safely enter the ruins. When they finally did, what they found would haunt them. Jill and Christopher's remains were discovered intertwined on what was left of the bed, buried under the rubble that had collapsed into the living room. But Kirsty's body was missing. There was still a flicker of hope that she had survived. That hope was crushed a few days later when fragments of Kirsty's remains were found amid the charred wreckage. Investigators worked with delicate brushes, treating the debris like an archaeological site, gathering every piece they could. Among those remains, a portion of Kirsty's skull revealed the painful truth. She had been shot in the head, just like her mother. The entire family had been killed before the fire even began. With the bodies identified, suspicion turned squarely toward Christopher. The recovery of security footage confirmed it. Chris had carried out each murder, each shot, each calculated step of the massacre. He left behind no last note, no apology, no explanation. But the evidence was undeniable. Investigators also opened a financial investigation and the truth about Chris's life began to unravel fast. Despite his image as a wealthy businessman, Chris had been hiding an avalanche of debt. By the time of the murders, his liabilities had ballooned to over $4 million. Creditors were closing in, prepared to seize everything, the house, the vehicles, even the smallest assets. But Chris had already taken care of that. He left nothing for them to claim, only ashes. As more details emerged, theories flooded in. Some believed that Chris had snapped from the shame of financial failure, that he couldn't bear the public downfall. Others saw it as a monstrous act of control by a man who would rather obliterate everything than admit defeat. His mother, Enid, was heartbroken. She refused to believe her son could be capable of such cruelty. In her eyes, he did it out of love, to protect his family from the humiliation of losing everything. But Andrew, his brother, saw things differently. The two had not spoken for 16 years. There were times Andrew had considered visiting, if only for the sake of their mother, but fear always stopped him. Their childhood had been filled with tension and trauma. Andrew alleged that Chris was a bully, a control freak, and had even assaulted him during their youth. In 1999, Andrew had written Chris a letter trying to reconcile. Chris's reply was chilling. He demanded a written apology, telling Andrew that he needed to beg and scrape on bended knee to be allowed back into his and Jill's life. The history between the brothers painted a stark portrait of a man consumed by pride, control, and vengeance. 4 months after the tragedy, on December 19, 2008, a joint funeral was held for 15-year-old Kirsty and 49-year-old Jill at their local village church. It was quiet, intimate, and attended only by close friends and family. As per Jill's family's wishes, both were laid to rest together in the same burial plot. Christopher Foster was buried separately in another location, alone and far from the wife and daughter he claimed to love. In the years following the Abaston House tragedy, the ruins of the estate remained untouched. Charred furniture, melted debris, and even small remnants of the Fosters' life, like Kirsty's first aid manual for her horses and a handwritten meal plan, still lay scattered across the ground, like ghosts of what once was. The 16-acre estate was finally cleared in 2011. In 2012, it was put up for sale, but failed to find a buyer. It wasn't until 2014 that Kevin Gorski stepped in and purchased the land for a cut price of £400,000. With hopes of giving the property a new beginning and helping the community heal from the horror that once stood there, Gorski invested $1 million into building his dream home. But instead of renewal, he found ruin. Now Gorski claims the house he built as a death trap. He says the structure is so unstable that heavy 60-kilogram stone slabs and massive cornerstones could collapse at any moment, likening the danger to a giant Jenga tower on the verge of toppling. 2 stones have already fallen, and Gorski fears someone could be killed if emergency repairs aren't made soon. Worse, he says he's already electrocuted himself while living in the house and now faces a staggering £350,000 repair bill. He's taken legal action against the builder, who he claims refuses to accept responsibility, blaming everything from the warm sun to the architects and inspectors. Gorski, who used compensation money from a near-fatal motorbike crash in 2008 to fund the build, says he's out of funds and out of options. It's like this place has a past that doesn't want to let me escape from. He said, what was meant to symbol of healing now feels like a haunting reminder of a tragedy that refuses to stay buried. As the rain gently falls and the night grows deeper, thank you for joining me here at Mr. Nightcared. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the importance of staying aware. Even as we seek comfort in the quiet of the night, let the rain carry you to a peaceful sleep. And until we meet again, stay safe, stay curious, and let the Night watch over you.